7 to 9, only on Megatalk. Are you ready to elevate your spirits? Look no further than Black Rain Spirits, your local craft distillery nestled in Town Square Mall. Indulge in the smooth richness of our handcrafted spirits, meticulously distilled to perfection. Whether you prefer the bold kick of our bourbon or the subtle sophistication of our gin, Black Rain Spirits has something for every palate. Visit us today at Town Square Mall and experience the essence of true craftsmanship. Black Rain Spirits, where passion meets perfection, unconventionally traditional.
Hey, it's K-Dog with the Outlaw Radio Network. We are everywhere. You can follow us on all your favorite social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Vimeo, and more. And if you want to follow me personally, hop on your Twitter and just search for K-Dog the Outlaw. And don't forget our really cool website, outlawradionetwork.com, full of all the cool merch you've been looking for. Outlaw Radio Network. Are you an outlaw yet?
Never give in. Never give in. Never, never, never. In nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. Never yield to force. Never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy.
You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network. OutlawRadioNetwork.com.
This country can't be knocked out with one punch. We get right back up again, and when we do, the world's going to hear the roar of our engines.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
You do your work, and we will do our bit.
Republic. I like the sound of it. It means people can live free, talk free, go or come, buy or sell, be drunk or sober, however they choose.
Are you ready to be who you are?
No poetry, just a straight answer.
The government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace.
We are men of the hood. Very now at your expense.
But there's no both sides anymore. They're just trying to wreck our goddamn country. It's time for you younger guys to take over.
You meant to be here tonight. This is your time. Their time is done. It's over. Screw them. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
If you guys don't start thinking as men, we're gonna have a lousy country.
For the crimes of incitement to cause unrest, I declare to be an outlaw.
All right, it's the Outlaw Radio Network. It is the 16th of June, 2024. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Biological dads, stepdads, dad-in-laws, fur dads,
surrogate dads,
fill-in dads, all the dads except for Paul. Well, he keeps calling me daddy, and that's just weird. So he doesn't get any love from me at all. So Paul's out tonight. Oh yeah, Super Daddy-O. Yeah.
But it is Father's Day. I mean,
it is Father's Day.
Isn't it okay to be daddy today?
It doesn't matter. He's not going to be on the show tonight. He is helping his wife with some. He's not even celebrating Father's Day. He's celebrating. He's helping his wife with some stuff. They've got some big life changes going on again, and so he's taking the night off. So I love you, Paul, but no happy Father's Day wishes from me, you big fat jerk. Anyway. So many things going on tonight. Coming up in just a moment, Frank Aquila will join us. We'll get a good 30 to 40 minutes in with Frank to talk about some national stuff. We had to keep pushing him back because we had the Semi Bird interview. We had the Libertarian presidential candidate interview and just so much stuff going on the show. We're growing by leaps and bounds. We're becoming bigger than we've ever thought we'd be. It's in part because Paul's gone a lot. And so anyway, we'll bring Frank on in just a moment. I want to say this though, really, just in all seriousness, to all the dads out there, happy Father's Day. The role of a father is one of the most instrumental and important roles in our society, and it is one that is way overlooked. It's been minimized by the feminist movement. It's been minimized by the left. We've been told that, it's not really that important. A single mom can do just as good of a job. Well, studies will tell you that you can't. And I'm not saying that single dads can either. The father-mother relationship is really important. The parental unit is extremely important. But the idea that somehow we don't need fathers is flawed and incorrect.
Agreed.
If we look at the dysfunction within minority and inner city communities and the amount of absent fathers we have within those communities, I think that they're intertwined and interconnected.
I wouldn't even draw it on those lines.
I'll just use that as an example, Tom. Don't shoot down my fallacy. I'm just saying the role of fathers in society is extremely important. And in a day and age where if you look on your Facebook, you'll see a whole bunch of women wishing other women happy Father's Day because your baby's daddy wasn't around and you played the role of mother and daddy. Well, congratulations. You're raising a child on your own. That's really, really hard. But let's not bask in the glow of the fact that there's not a father. Because if you read the stat after stat after stat after stat after stat after stat after stat that talks about the impact of fatherlessness homes on fatherlessness children's in a fatherlessness society, to every father who steps up, who does the job, who's there every day, who honors their financial obligations, who goes to the ball games and the plays and the music, the music performances and all of that, to all of you, God bless you for doing the work that you're supposed to do as a dad.
I don't want to. I want to leave out the stepdads and stuff either.
No, but I mean the role of a father.
Right.
I mean you're filling the role, whether you're biological, step, adopted, whatever. You're filling the role as a father in a child's life. You're being there when they need you. You're helping to put shoes on their feet and food in their mouths. You're attending events. God bless you for doing it.
That's the important.
And don't let society minimize the role and the importance of you being a father or filling the role of a father. Don't let anybody make that sound less than the important piece that it is.
Agreed.
All right, there we go. Speaking of fathers, let's bring a father on the air with us. I know that he has put many miles on the car as he has traveled back and forth to ball games, being a dad in support of his son's goal to pitch and be part of a team. He is many things. He is also a good friend of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Frank Aquila joins us from the Bat Cave. Hello, Frank.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, happy Father's Day to you guys. I got some feedback coming back.
Yeah, we're getting a nasty connection as well. Can you drop his volume down just a smidge there, Bob Ross? Let's see if that helps. Go ahead and try that again, Frank.
How is this? A lot better.
A lot better. All right.
Oh,
hey, man, happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day,
Kevin.
Frank.
Before we get into all the divisive stuff that's going on in the world, how did you spend your Father's Day? What did you do? How did you enjoy your role as father today?
Well, first, let me just state I want to say Happy Father's Day to not just you, Kevin, but I heard somebody else say Happy Father's Day. So it's for everybody that's a father listening. And as you may remember, my birthday is actually at the same time as Father's Day. So we actually celebrated my birthday as well as Father's Day. And so we spent the time in church. Spent some time with my brother, my wife, my mother, and my son. So it was a really special day. And I also want to say, Kevin, that opening, talking about fathers, the importance of fathers, was very, very touching. It was very, very important how you put that all together. That was great. And I know that those in the liberal, I mean, the last time we were on the air, I think it was Mother's Day.
Yeah.
That I was with you guys. So, and I know liberals like to call Mother's Day Birthing People's Day, which I totally disagree with. I think it takes away from what a mother really is. I don't know what liberals call Father's Day. I don't know if there's a term that they use, but it is very important that we honor both our fathers and our mothers.
You know what? I completely agree with you. And as a guy who's lost both of them within the last couple of years, I feel that now more than ever for sure. Let's segue just a little bit. Frank, I don't, every time we meet now, I've asked you the same question. Like I open with the same question now. How much more wackadoodle can this entire scenario get? More videos came out this morning of our beloved President Joe at a meeting of I think it was the G7 nations in Europe. They're all standing around chatting. And I don't know if Joe saw a butterfly or if Joe saw a ladybug or if Joe saw a rainbow, but Joe just turns around and starts wandering away like Jill's not there to hold his hand. Listen, take the whole Trump thing out of this. We'll get to Trump in a second. Frank, can we please do something about Joe? I mean, can we put him on a like? Remember the I don't see him anymore, but remember those parents that used to have those little wristbands that went around their wrist, and then it had the little extended, the little child leash that went to the other kid's wrist, and they had to keep their kid. Can we do that with Joe, Frank?
Kevin, this is actually very sad. This man really needs help. He needs to be taken, and be allowed to spend time with his family alone, and it should not be the butt of jokes on a national stage. Everybody can see this, and what they're doing is they're running him to be president. He's not even running the country. He doesn't even know where he is half the time, and this is something that's very dangerous for America. It's very dangerous because of the fact that we have world leaders that are seeing this. Who's really running the show? When you talk about somebody supposed to have the nuclear football in their hand that can make a decision at 3:00 in the morning, this is all very terrifying if you think about it. Our lives are in this man's hands in some sense. You have social services, select services has, now they have just As you know, they had just passed a bill in the House to make sure every young man between 18 and 26 is eligible for the draft.
Mm-hmm.
There's talks about this, and I'm not sure where this is all going to go, but you have a man that really doesn't even know where he is half the time, supposedly running the country, but we know there's handlers that are actually running everything, and this is something that's very, very dangerous, and this is why many people are resonating with President Trump and knowing where our country's going.
Well, and if you look online now, the left-leaning media has lost their mind, and there's all kinds of stories out here about how, well, the image was cropped and it didn't really happen that way, and he didn't really wander off. And if this was a one-off, Frank, if this was a one-time video, then I'd be like, okay, I could see that. This is just politics at its best, and we're just going to crop angles and use it the best way we can for political warfare. How many more of these instances do we need to see, Frank, before somebody takes it seriously?
Well, I think people are starting to take it serious. I really do. I think there's a lot of people out there that are seeing that Joe Biden is not fit for the job. He really has never been fit for the job. And, and this is not just a, one-time video, as you say. This is almost every single day there's a different video. I think there's a video from yesterday where he froze and Barack Obama had to escort him off the stage.
Mm-hmm.
I think from June 19th, when he had, not June 19th, that would have been Juneteenth. But there was a black event where you've probably seen it, where Joe Biden was standing there next to Kamala Harris and some other black leaders, and they were doing some sort of dance and singing, and he just froze there. And that was just like a couple days ago. So there's these multiple videos that are coming out of this guy just being frozen. And you know that if he gets reelected, which he's not going to, but that's where Kamala Harris would be the next president. And he's just being propped along just as much as they can, and that's why they're really attacking President Trump, to make sure that he can't even go out there and campaign himself.
Frank, you brought up President Trump. Obviously, since the last time we talked, he was convicted of 34 felonies in New York State. Now, the one thing that I don't feel like the media even talks about is that these are considered Class E felonies, which, if you're in the state of New York, are the lowest grade of felony that you can be convicted of. And if this were anybody else, the chances of jail time would be nil. 90% of these cases, per information released out by the Associated Press, 90% of these cases end up with either community service or probation. The 10% that remain are generally people that have been convicted of the crimes previously and are repeat offenders. What do you think comes out of sentencing in July? Do you think that they weaponize this even further to send Trump with some kind of jail time?
It's all about imagery. And I'm glad you brought up the fact that it's a Class E felony. I knew that he was going to be convicted. I had talked about this in the past, that this is what they want to do. They brought it to a venue that in New York where you have 95% of the people voted against him.
Mm-hmm.
You brought it to a judge who maybe, most people don't even know this, that this judge has actually donated to Biden himself.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually an ethics violation by that judge. He places a gag order so that President Trump can't say anything, so he fines him and threatens him with the jail time. Nobody's ever stated this, so I'm going to go ahead and state this just for this fact. If you can shop a judge and you have a very liberal district, or that you have where he could actually be tried, why can somebody shop the jury? How about if you go ahead and say, we're going to go ahead and finagle with everything and just actually have a jury pool of some people that we know, and we're going to try to get those people on the jury to actually make sure that they maybe influence others that may get on the jury. So you should actually shop various jurors into, it's just something I'm just throwing out there, maybe a conspiracy theory, just because I hadn't heard anybody talk about this, but I don't put past these people, but they want the imagery. What's going to happen, Kevin? I believe they want the imagery. I wouldn't be surprised if this judge actually ordered him to 1 day in jail just so that he could have the picture of handcuffs going on him. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And I don't know if it's going to get to the point where maybe he orders him on house arrest. I don't know if he orders him probation to where he can't go anywhere beyond New York, so he can't go out and campaign. This is a judge, mind you, that he is in the Democrats' pocket. His daughter was profiting off this whole thing. This is a weaponization, and this is something that happens in third world countries. If we were a country watching this happen into another country, we would say this is totally wrong. This is what dictatorships do, and I believe that's their whole idea of getting Joe Biden to be reelected is to make sure Donald Trump's not out there putting the imagery that he is a felon. He needs to go ahead and be in jail, so that the non-informed voter out there would say, okay, I can't really vote for him. And so, I guess I got to go ahead and vote for Biden. And that's really what they're trying to do here.
Really quick, I want to respond to a comment in chat. Sean said, I don't want to defend Sleepy Joe, but this is an unfair critique. When you see the full uncropped video, you see that there is a paratrooper packing a parachute and he is watching and talking to him. Sean, you're not wrong. But again, I'll remind you that every other world leader was there for the photo op to point and oogle and awe at the dude parachuting in from the sky. And Joe was like, oh, squirrel, and wandered off to go talk to somebody else. You're right. It's not as though he got confused and bewildered and just wandered, but it's irrelevant, right? I mean, this photo op stuff is like part and parcel of what world leaders do. Let's all assemble and oogle and awe so they can take our pictures, making us look like we care when God knows we don't. And he wandered off. I don't know. Frank, the other thing that happened since the last time we talked is we're talking about all this court stuff is Hunter Biden got convicted of his little felony regarding the gun. Paul had a really interesting take I wanted to share with you and see what you thought. On Wednesday night show, Paul said, look, I don't like Hunter Biden, but I think this is a BS charge. And I don't think he ever should have been charged or convicted with anything involving the firearm. What do you think about the charges against Hunter, the Second Amendment construct with that, and then what happens with Hunter when this whole thing is over? Because I don't believe he'll ever serve a day in jail.
Yeah, with Hunter, I don't think they ever wanted to have him charged with anything at all. I think basically what the Department of Justice, they wanted to sweep everything under the rug, and they wanted to avoid anything with Hunter actually being charged with the gun charge. But the gun charge was a lesser charge. Mm-hmm. Really, what you had Hunter Biden involved with crimes with Ukraine, that ties in Joe Biden, the big guy. That's really where it went. Now, what's going to happen with Hunter Biden? I agree. He's not going to serve a day, and I think it's going to be a lot of people that have been convicted of crimes is going to see how Hunter Biden gets pardoned, and he's going to be pardoned. I don't think they wanted this conviction. And going back, I want to go back to that Trump trial in a second. That judge Merchan, he actually stated, "Hey, there was this jury where there was a cousin that actually, if you could maybe run by this a little bit, Kevin, if I could try to explain it."
Yeah.
there was there was leaked information that they were going to go ahead and convict Trump, and a cousin to one of the jurors put out a message that it was going to happen, and Judge Merchan actually left out part of that text that was actually publicized, and the part that he left out was, "Thank you for your hard against the MAGA crazies." And that part was left out by the judge when he informed about there was some sort of breach of the jury. You know, there's still question about who this juror was. Was this a hoax? But there's obviously this information in this part of the text was left out. I would also state, going back to the Trump trial, that you have Cohen, who is a serial liar, had admitted that he stole the money, and then you had Stormy Daniels up there, who's actually wrote 2 letters that she had not had any sexual relationship with Donald Trump, and yet she was able to go ahead and having her testimony talking about condoms and just the sexual experience. The judge gave a lot of latitude. And this was purposely done for the jury. But when Bob Costello, he came on as Trump's witness, then his testimony was very limited. This whole thing's going to get overturned, but they didn't care about if it's going to get overturned or not. Again, it's imagery. What they want to do is just have the conviction. If it gets overturned, it's going to be overturned after the election.
Frank, hold that thought just for a sec.
That's the whole reason.
Hold that thought for a sec, because I'm going to give you another piece of evidence I think backs that up as well. So stick around. Talk with Frank Aquila, one more segment around the corner. You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network. Outlaw Radio Network. What do we have here? What is this? It's a coaster. Lori, we have Frank on with us too. We're on Facebook side only, so feel free to swear. Lori got us coasters, and it says, "Life is full of important decisions."
Or if you drink, don't drive.
Well,
don't even putt.
Don't even. Oh, is that what yours says? Oh, I like that. That's good. Okay.
Yep, mine says, "Yell 4, shoot 6, write down 5."
Mine is the best.
Yours is the best. Dennis, what does yours say?
Weapons of grass destruction.
Weapons of grass destruction. So clearly you were at the golf course today, Lori. Is that what you did? No?
I've had these for a while.
Oh, you've had these for a while? All right. All right. Frank, do you golf?
Never have golfed.
God bless you for not golfing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Have you gone golfing?
No. What I did once with golfing, my niece and her husband live in a gated community in Cali, not far from you, actually. And they have a golf course. And so we went out one night after dark in the golf cart and tried to play polo on a golf cart. And I did not do very well.
And I know exactly where you are, because that's in Discovery Bay, where you can drive the carts right on the street.
Oh, yeah. They let you all over Discovery Bay. There's people driving them out there. It's great, man. Yeah. All right. We're going to come back on AM in just a second. More with Frank Aquila. He is the author of the book Sarah Palin. I don't know. We're a good friend of the show. Frank, when we come back, I'm going to give you an explanation of another example of exactly what you were talking about Trump. So hold on. Hold that thought. We're coming back on AM after this on the Mega Talk Radio Network. All right, Outlaw Radio. K-Dog, Black Tom, Lori, the CEO, has finally wandered into the studio. Bob Ross is running the boards. DJ D's around here somewhere with his pants off. I don't know what he's doing. And we're joined on the phone by Frank Aquila. He is our conservative insider, good friend of the show. Frank, good afternoon, good evening.
Good evening.
We were talking before the break about your thought is, this whole Trump decision is going to get overturned, but it won't happen until after the election. And by then the damage will have already been done. Isn't that exactly what they did with the Russian collusion thing? Like, didn't they
It's what they do-
scream
yeah,
and cry
it's
about
what they
Russian
did with
collusion?
Russian collusion, and also what they did with the Hunter laptop thing. It's they went ahead and we didn't talk about the Hunter laptop at all, but that was damaging to Joe Biden, and here you had 51 Department of Justice individuals stating that Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. So they have tried to influence the election in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen with that, Frank? I mean, there's two real big questions on the horizon for this, right? One is, does what's happened since the last time we talked, does that change whether or not you think Trump is viable as the Republican nominee to win the White House? Is the first question. The second question is, there's always been talk the last 2 years that somehow Joe Biden would not be the nominee and that somebody else will replace him on the ballot. Last week, Michelle Obama's name got dropped again. I don't know where it's coming from, but her name was thrown out there by somebody last week. Is Joe Biden still likely to be the nominee, or do you think there's change on either side?
I think they feel that they could still win this. As far as I'm talking about how the Democrats, they think their strategy is to still win this. I could be a conspiracist and actually state, hey, one thing I've stated to some people privately is like, wouldn't it be strange if they go ahead and have something major happen so that we can't have an election on election day and they get all the mail-in ballots, and therefore they could try to state that the Democrats, they vote early often, and Republicans used to vote on election day. So, but we weren't able to have an election, so we're just going to go ahead and just go with count the mail-in ballots that we received.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thought I just wanted to throw out there. I don't put it past these people to have some sort of thoughts and their whole device of trying to win would mean, hey, Dominion voting machines or mail-in ballots, anything they can to cheat to win. And I think they're seeing that there's some cracks of support from Joe Biden, especially in the Black community, even Hispanics, women. They are more tending towards Trump. I believe the economy is being held up falsely, but there's going to be some huge cracks in the economy very shortly, especially with the high inflation and high interest rates. Those two things are going to create some big problems that won't be resolved even by the time of the election. It's going to be a problem even up to the election that we're going to have to deal with. But I think those people that absolutely hate Trump are not going to vote for him. But you have a lot of people that have now seen all this false reports, the fake Russian collusion stories, finding out about how the Hunter laptop story was false, and what they've done to Trump, and they're saying, you know what, I don't believe this stuff anymore, and I'm going to go ahead and vote for Trump. And there's a lot of people out there that didn't vote for Trump before that are going to, and that's just going to go ahead and bolster his numbers so much more. And so I think the Democrats, their plan is that they're going to go ahead and still be able to steal this election away, but I don't think they're going to.
Yeah, Frank, I think we talked about this before. I think you're wrong, only in the sense that I think Trump derangement syndrome is high. And I think the same two things that motivated voters in the midterms and that motivated voters in 2020 still exist, right? I mean, just this week, the Supreme Court ruled on the abortion pill to keep that available and accessible. Democrats are still selling that as, look, Trump and Republicans want to take away all of our bodily choices. They want to take away all of our rights to body autonomy. And so abortion is still going to be a rallying cry coming into November. And additionally, like you said, the people that hate Trump hate Trump. And he by himself is enough fodder to get some people motivated to go to the polls. I'm not advocate. I don't want 4 more years of Biden. That's not what I'm saying. I really wonder, Frank, if what we saw in 2022 does not repeat in 2024, where the average voter is, boy, I'm sick of the inflation. I'm sick of this flagging economy. We know that there's a bubble going on in the housing market, but then they get inundated with messages about how Republicans want to steal away women's bodily autonomy. And Donald Trump is still opening his mouth and saying abrasive things that rub people the wrong way. And somehow Joe Biden squeaks by and we got 4 more years of Biden.
No.
Yeah, Kevin, I think let's talk about the abortion issue or women's rights for a moment. I think you're right in one sense, but also the ladies that are women's rights per se, they're going to be voting Democrat anyways.
Right.
I think where Republicans are missing it is what they need to do is start talking about how they are the ones for women's rights, talking about how transgender rights, men that want to dress up as women that are going into women's locker rooms, going in girls' sports and girls' events. Where is the National Organization of Women on that? How come you don't hear the National Organization of Women standing up and saying, hey, all those women that stood on the stage for Miss Maryland when a guy that had male genitalia won the Miss Maryland, how come the National Organization of Women didn't stand up? How come those women didn't walk off that stage? And, there's a lot of women out there that are seeing how their rights are being taken away. So I think that's a point for Republicans to fight back. I think abortion, the whole thing with abortion is been brought to where it's a state issue. So states decide rather than it being a national issue. If you're here in California and you want to have your abortion up to the day before it's born, or even after, if you want to call it infanticide, you can go ahead and do that. But other states have more strict abortion laws. So that's where that issue should be dead. I think I'm basically talking about the Republicans really should mantle the fact that they are going to stand for women's rights, which you don't hear anything from the National Organization of Women, and you don't hear anything from the Democrat Party on that. So I think that they're missing an opportunity to flip the switch on the Democrats. But you are right. There's a certain segment of the voting bloc that will continue to vote for Joe Biden no matter what, and that's not going to ever change. But it's the people who are in the middle that basically sit back and they see how you have seen the weaponization of the Department of Justice against President Trump. And these are the people who are going to say, you know what? I don't like to see what's happening to our country. I don't like to see that we're having a one political party system. I want to make sure I have a voice going forward. I don't like the direction of what Joe Biden's done. Nobody can say anything what this guy's done in 4 years as president that's been positive. So that's where it's people aren't going to really care so much about somebody's abortion rights when it's going to come down to their pocketbook. It's really what it's going to come down to, and they realized when President Trump was president that we had the best economy ever in this country.
Yeah. Frank, a light question before we wrap this up. I don't know if you saw the post I put on my Facebook page, but I got a sweatshirt made that says Chambers Madden, because Chambers is me and Madden is Paul. Chambers Madden 24. And then our byline says, it's not like we can do any worse, right? So if it came down to you voting for Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or voting for me and Paul, who would you vote for?
Oh, there's no doubt. You guys have my vote, definitely.
We've been endorsed by Frank Aquila. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate you.
There you go.
Listen, buddy. Hey, man. Again, happy Father's Day. Thanks for your flexibility. I want to say this publicly. I kind of beat you around the schedule a lot this weekend as things popped up, and then the Semi Bird stuff. And I know you don't know who Semi is, but boy, get the popcorn. But I just want to thank you publicly for always being such a willing supporter of the show and a willing to participant and so flexible, man. I appreciate you. I am still hoping to make it down to Cali later this year. So when I do, I really do hope to get back together and hang out with you again in person.
Kevin, yeah, that would be wonderful. I'd love to go ahead and talk, and just let you know, I'm going to be at some point. I'm going to be talking a little bit further. I'm actually involved with Hollywood producers. I'm building that we and my wife are executive producers, working with various Hollywood producers on a documentary. And this also involves Spike Lee as a Hollywood producer, and this is going to actually a big story. If you want to follow the story, you could actually go to Instagram under _stolen_legacy. A stolen legacy is about a 97-year-old woman who I happen to have been her realtor, and this woman had come to America back during just after World War II, built a financial empire here in America, only to have the government steal her whole entire estate.
Frank, I would love to hear more about that. Let's talk. Let's chat about that. Okay, let's catch up.
Oh yeah, go to A Stolen Legacy. You'll see the beginnings of this movie. The producers actually posted some information on there, and there'll be more to come.
All right, buddy. We love you. We appreciate you. Let's chat. We'll be in touch. We'll talk with you again next month.
Sounds good. You guys stay safe.
There he goes, Frank Aquila. Again, he is author of the book Sarah Palin Out of Nowhere, longtime contributor to the show, big fan of the show. He loves us, and he endorses us over Joe Biden, which really is what. That's why I keep Frank around, so he can remind me of how important I am to the democracy that this great country is founded upon. But thanks to Frank for joining us, and I mean it too. Thanks to Frank for being so flexible. We've had to pivot and shift a whole bunch of things, and I said shift a whole bunch of things just with schedules lately. So thank you, Frank. We're going to go to commercial break. When we get back from commercial break, we will we'll diverge into a little bit of a similar and yet a little bit of a different topic. I'll explain when we get there.
Okay.
Are you intrigued, Tom?
I'm intrigued.
Are you intrigued?
I'm intrigued. I'm curious.
It's intriguing radio. All right. Also, I'm not going to talk about it on the air yet. I need to talk to Phil about an idea that I have. That I think will be fabulous. And I'll get Lori's thoughts on it too off air before.
Fabulous.
Oh,
so this is only half baked right now.
It'll be super. Well, no, you and Dennis are here. You're fully baked. It'll be super.
Not yet.
Super duper. Hey, by the way, I went up today with my kids. Took me up to the Undersea Naval Warfare Museum up at Keyport. If you're in Kitsap County or within driving distance of Kitsap County, if you have the opportunity, go check it out. It's really cool. It's free. There's no cost to get in, and you can learn a lot more about the submariners. I didn't know that some of them prefer to be called submariners, but I learned that today. But it's a really cool exhibit if you can go check it out at the Keyport Naval Base place.
Keyport Naval Weapons Station.
Yeah. Back after this is Outlaw Radio.
On a recent episode of the Outlaw Radio Network.
Some of our listeners even appreciated you dumbing it down for them. So, on behalf
sometimes
of Paul,
I have to mansplain for people like. By the way, mansplaining is when men explain things to a woman in a condescending tone. I just mansplaining.
Outlaw Radio Network, Sundays from 8 to 11, Wednesdays from 7 to 9, only on Megatalk. Are you ready to elevate your spirits? Look no further than Black Rain Spirits, your local craft distillery, nestled in Town Square Mall. Indulge in the smooth richness of our handcrafted spirits, meticulously distilled to perfection. Whether you prefer the bold kick of our bourbon or the subtle sophistication of our gin, Black Rain Spirits has something for every palate. Visit us today at Town Square Mall and experience the essence of true craftsmanship. Black Rain Spirits, where passion meets perfection, unconventionally traditional.
Hey, it's K-Dog with the Outlaw Radio Network. We are everywhere. You can follow us on all your favorite social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Vimeo, and more. And if you want to follow me personally, hop on your Twitter and just search for K-Dog the Outlaw. And don't forget our really cool website, outlawradionetwork.com, full of all the cool merch you've been looking for. Outlaw Radio Network. Are you an outlaw yet? You can be my bodyguard, and I will be your long-lost pal.
Oh, who was that?
Simon and Garfunkel.
Thank you.
No, Paul Simon.
No,
Just Paul Simon.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah.
Baby, if you call me, you can call me Al. All right. Anyway, Outlaw Radio.
As they say, who sings that? And you said,
I said Simon and Garfunkel, but it was Paul Simon.
can we keep it that way?
Hey,
You know
Phil,
what? Shut up.
does this thing work?
Be supportive. No, it does not. It doesn't work? Okay. No. Be supportive, will you, Phil? Be
Well,
nice.
you know what they say. It's kind of like at school, if you can't be an athlete.
Be an athletic supporter.
Yep.
You guys aren't even nice. All right. Hey, listen, I wanted to segue to something really quick, and this may become a bigger conversation. If it does, we'll carry it over to the beginning of the next hour. I don't know if you guys are following what's going on with Caitlin Clark.
Yes.
Not really.
Who?
So Caitlin Clark is a women's
WNBA
basketball player in the WNBA. She is the most hyped women's basketball player to come out, I think, ever.
Now,
Okay.
when you say come out, is she actually?
No, like come out of college
Oh, okay.
into the. I don't know what her sexuality is. I don't care.
I know it's hard to know, but is she a woman?
Yeah, she's a woman.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, you never know anymore.
She's a very attractive woman too, by the way. All right, so, she's in her rookie year with the Indiana Fever. Is she married?
No.
Oh, she's engaged. Okay, well, of course she is.
You're saying
The
there's a
minute she
chance.
scored all those millions of dollars, the guy was going to propose. You know that. We're smart that way. All right, so she's drafted by the Indiana Fever where she's playing. She's been the victim of some really hard fouls, including one that happened, I think it was earlier today, or maybe it was last night, but it was earlier today or last night, where she basically got just smacked across the face going for a layup. And the player that did it is the same player that celebrated a couple weeks ago when her teammate fouled her hard. So now there's a whole bunch of talk about what's going on with Caitlin Clark, why they're being so mean to her, whether race plays into it, whether fame plays into it. Go ahead, Lori.
Okay, so Caitlin Clark is
Phenomenal, but go ahead.
she's phenomenal
Yeah.
as a player. However, remember Eddie Haskell? I know this is dating us. Leave it to Beaver.
Leave it to Beaver. How old do you
know-
think I am? Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah. Okay. Remember Eddie Haskell never really got caught by the adults.
Mhm.
They always thought he was charming and great. Kind of translate that over to Caitlin Clark. Now, I'm not taking away that
Wait a
she's
minute,
getting hit hard.
You think that she's what?
Oh.
Well, what do you think she is?
She's the one that gets away. She instigates a lot. When
Oh, you
she-
think so? And the
oh yeah,
cameras
I
just aren't
watched her
catching
play
her?
college ball,
Okay.
and she
She could play with my college ball. What? Go ahead.
remember how Gary Payton was a trash talker?
Yes.
Okay, she's a trash talker as well as a signal trash talker. Like she would do signals, and one of the ones I think Angel Reese played against her when she was playing. Oh gosh, LSU.
Yeah, Angel Reese played for LSU. Yeah.
And so they've gone up against each other for like 4 years in,
Yeah.
in college. And now,
And now they're going to go up against each other every year for the next decade.
right. Exactly. And so Caitlin can back it up with her performance and her way of dribbling and being
Mhm.
a point guard. However, she is not the easiest to get along with from what I've observed.
No,
I'm not her
I would
friend
agree
or
with that.
anything. I
She
don't know her that
seems
well.
she seems amazingly intense, right?
Right.
And all the great athletes are, right?
Oh, yeah.
MJ was intense, Tom Brady
Yeah.
was intense. I'm intense and I'm a great athlete. So I think all great athletes have
Right.
a level of intensity to them. What is interesting with this thing for me is And again, I'm not a fan of the WNBA, but I'd rather watch the WNBA than the NBA because the WNBA actually involves skill and shooting and passing. The NBA involves like a lot of fouls and knocking into each other and praying for fouls, right? Like it's not the NBA it was in the 90s when Gary Payton and Sean Payton.
Luka put on a clinic this
No,
weekend.
Luka does really, but I mean the NBA in general, right? There's very few Lukas, okay?
Yeah.
Here's what I find is funny, right? Is that this is where the left-leaning media does not know how to report this.
Right.
Is this a woman being picked on? But she's white. But we can't talk about because they're African. And they don't know what to do with it.
Everybody's all twisted up.
There's insinuations all over the place. This is because Caitlin Clark is white. There's insinuations all over the places because she's famous.
It goes deeper than that.
No, I know, but I'm just talking about the insinuations that are out there, right? And so I don't know what to make of the whole thing. I don't know if Caitlin Clark's a victim or if, like Lori said, she's tilling the soil that's resulting in this or whatever. But I will tell you that I find it very interesting to watch how it's being reported. Because in the reporting itself, like literally go to CNN. There's an article on CNN about it. Go to ESPN, go to MSNBC, go to any of the major news sources that you read and just read how it's being reported. Because the reporting in and of itself tells me what the media wants you to think, how the media wants you to absorb it. And that to me is the most interesting thing. Because in the end, listen, Caitlin Clark is going to be the Michael Jordan of the WNBA.
Probably.
Okay? She's going to be the biggest name, the biggest, the person getting the most money in endorsements. She's going to be the household name, the face everybody knows. She's going to be Tom Brady in the WNBA. So watch how they protect her. And watch how this gets reported because the media has a spin on this story.
You think they're going to protect her?
I think they have to. I think they have to because if she's going to be the name, then they've got to protect her. They got to protect their golden girl. Because she's going to be the one that gets. Listen, if you take a look at attendance, they are selling out every arena that she plays in.
Oh yeah.
When she played, was it Chicago or was it in Connecticut? But she had a game in somebody else's arena and they were cheering for her. That doesn't happen.
No.
That doesn't happen in sports. And so I think the league is going to protect her because that's where the money's coming from. She keeps getting these hard fouls. She's going to get hurt. She gets hurt. She's out. What happens to all those tickets? What happens to all the eyes on? They're going to protect her.
Oh yeah. And I think that they're going to build up the story. If you think about it, it'll be Bird versus Magic all over again. Caitlin will be Bird and she's got the trash talk like Bird did. And she's got the skill to back it up. I mean, Bird is
That's
famous.
part of the problem. There's no Magic. In this league, there's
Angel
no player.
Reese.
Angel Reese is not Magic.
She could be.
Angel Reese is a better than average player, but she's not on the greatness level.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody as good as Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
Somebody who's got like Magic and Bird, right? Somebody's got
right.
the kind of star power. Angel Reese doesn't have it.
We'll see.
And listen, all the hack-a-shack stuff that they're doing, it makes those players look like thugs. And I don't mean that in a racial component. I mean that in a street ball component where you're just trying to hurt people.
Actually, it makes them look like high school girls that fight. To be totally honest,
I love it when high school girls fought over me.
God.
Happened all the time. That was such a catch.
But basically, it's Caitlin Clark who is your, what are they calling it? The clean look girl, and Angel Reese who is still in her, what they call it, the thug life makeup girl. And so there's that whole dynamic among girls. I know it's weird, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I just, again, I'm not enough into the WNBA that I could tell you anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Other than the fact that I think she's going to become the poster child for the league.
Probably.
Because why? Listen, whether you guys want to admit it or not, and I'm not a racist. I'm really not. But understand who the league needs to attract itself to. The league needs to attract itself to big business.
Yep.
Needs to attract itself to sponsorships and big business and the average household. Okay. Now,
And it has an opportunity.
13% of this country is African American.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to market yourself to the African American community, then you're going to market yourself to 13% of the population.
Right.
Okay. Do you want to market yourself to a much wider audience? Then you better start marketing yourself to white America, which still represents 68% of the country. How do you do that? An attractive white girl that speaks well and is a great player.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. And so the league is going to protect her. Do I think they should? Not necessarily. I think the WNBA is what the WNBA is. And I think a majority of your great players are African American. And I think a majority of your great players need to be recognized. I think the league is going to ignore them. So I'm not saying they should do this, but they will. Because they want to appeal to the big companies that want to have a marketable girl that they can market to a new audience.
The best way they can do that is just uniformly enforce, foul violations across the board. I mean,
But that doesn't happen in the NBA or the WNBA. Superstars get superstar calls all the time.
So the hard part for me to be involved in this conversation is I'm just not a fan of basketball.
Why?
Basketball's boring. I feel like I'm watching tennis, right? The ball goes up the court, the ball goes down the court, the ball goes up the court, the ball goes down the court. Basketball, tennis, same thing. They bore me. I don't see the strategy in it.
Women's basketball to me is a lot better to watch.
And
it's not for sexist reasons, you freak. Shut up. It's more pure. It's a cleaner form of the game. I had this conversation with David Nelson, editor of the Kitsap Sun, who's a big basketball fan. He didn't agree with me, but I think the WNBA is better.
See, I agree on that point with soccer, between men's soccer and women's soccer. I think women's soccer is way more interesting to watch than men's. Men's is just, I'm going to flop and try to draw the foul.
But you do know that soccer is not a sport, right?
I'm going to disagree with that.
Soccer is not a sport. And I just got the finger from Lori.
Spoken as a true libertarian.
I'm going to disagree with that.
Soccer is not a sport.
Soccer requires one hell of a lot of cardiovascular endurance.
Soccer is an activity.
No, soccer's a sport.
It's not a sport.
Why is it not
Sports
a sport?
do not end in ties a majority of the time. Sports have scoring. But how often? Once a season. Meanwhile, in soccer, it happens.
But it can
thousands of times. It's endless. It's never ending in the number of ties they have in soccer. In soccer, you'll have a 1-0 game. Yay! We scored a point. In baseball, football, basketball, there's actually scoring that goes on. I think they're athletes. I think that they are competitive. But I think it's an activity. It is certainly not a sport.
I think I know what the issue is. Kevin likes to watch things where people are scoring.
Yes.
Yeah.
Score. Listen, T-ball is not a sport. T-ball is an activity. I don't care if your kid plays T-ball. They are not an athlete. It is not a sport. It is an activity.
I'm going to score and then go to the kitty caca.
Now, watching like third grade soccer, that's entertaining. It's like watching chickens flock.
I'm going to look in the chat. Does anybody in chat agree that soccer is not a sport?
Soccer.
Sean says Tom's right.
Tom's always right.
Yep. Who said that? Sean said Tom's right to what? You guys have to remember when you say things in chat, you have to be more specific. You can't say Tom's right because there's a delay. I want to know what he's right about.
Everything.
The timestamp puts it right around. He's talking about soccer.
Yep. Tom is always right. It doesn't
Why are you
matter.
assuming what he's right about? Don't listen, Trump. Quit making up facts to back up your narrative, okay?
Kevin, you don't understand something. That Tom's right. That's a blanket statement. It can be applied to anything. I am always right.
Corey Collins, I agree. Soccer is not a sport. It's called cross-country runners that kick a ball. Thank you, Corey. Sean Mahood, basketball is boring. J. Andrew Kennedy, women's basketball is not a sport. Changed my mind. Put the top WNBA against a mid-level college basketball team for science. Well, that doesn't mean it's not a sport. It's just a woman's sport. I mean, it's a woman's level sport. It's not. You might not enjoy it. I still think it's a sport. Outlaw Radio. I'm always right. Tom's always wrong. Back after this.
Oh. You just got the finger, but you're finishing dinner, so.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it's the Outlaw Radio Network. We're back.
Outlaw Radio. All right. Soccer's not a sport.
And I couldn't cue it up fast enough earlier.
Cue what up?
I hate those things. Nobody hates rainbows. Yeah, what's there to hate about rainbows? Well, you know, you'll just be sitting there, minding your own business, and they'll come marching in and crawl up your leg and start biting the inside of your ass.
What are you doing?
You've never seen South Park?
I've seen South. I just don't know that episode.
I don't know that episode either.
It's the classic Cartman hates rainbows.
Biting your ass? Okay.
Oh, rainbows. Oh, they're cute. Yeah.
Whatever you're into, Phil. Whatever you're into.
We're talking 1990s South Park here, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, ranks right up there with Journey and Foreigner.
First of all, don't you ever put Journey in the same camp with Foreigner, okay? Foreigner is a B- band. Journey is an A++++.
And Bryan Adams.
Oh, Bryan Adams. Hey, don't knock Bryan Adams. He's Canadian, so we have to use a sliding scale.
Be nice to our neighbor to the north.
Just remember, everything I do, I do for you.
I do for you. Yeah.
Anyway, no soccer. Listen, NASCAR, not a sport.
Agreed.
Okay. Horse racing is a sport for the horses.
And the
not for the jockeys. They're on for a ride. They're going for a leisurely stroll while the horse does all the work. Poker, not a sport. I should never see poker on ESPN. It's an activity. It's a game.
Remember, folks, Kevin Chambers' views do not necessarily reflect that of Outlaw Radio Network.
Because I'm smart and the rest of them are dumb.
Or the rest of the world. All right. Fun fact.
Yes.
What Olympic event doesn't require first aid, medical personnel to be present? I mean, I suppose that most people think it's all sports.
Speed walking.
Nope.
No.
Curling.
Nope.
I'm sure curling does for freaking Canadians.
The gun shooting part. Oh. It's that safe.
Oh, what?
And it is definitely a sport.
Yeah.
No, not the biathlon. Just the shooting. The target shooting.
Yeah, when they're doing firearm stuff. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's no need to have a medic there if you get hit. It's not like where you're just going to throw a hammy.
What I know with biathlon, they're not even using actual firearms. They're using like a laser light thing.
Oh, a digital.
Oh, jeez, that sucks.
Yeah.
Oh well.
J. Andrew Kennedy said that any form of auto racing is a sport. I don't know how.
Have you ever raced? Well, I've heard about
Yeah, of
your
course I have.
I've heard about your derby.
Yeah. It's not a sport.
So what makes a sport?
Okay. All right. You ready? A sport requires physical prowess. Has to have a winner and a loser. Has to have
uniform rules.
Uniform rules. There has to be goals.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not soccer goals, by the way. Shut up.
So far, he's describing NASCAR.
But NASCAR does not require physical prowess. Are you kidding? They're turning a wheel, man. If I can do it, it's not a sport.
Try doing that 200 miles an hour.
If I can do it, it's not a sport.
Yeah, I don't think you could do it.
I could do it.
You can't even get around a derby track.
Because I have Paul trying to spin me out, okay?
It takes
Corey
physical
agrees.
endurance.
Turning left for 500 laps is not a sport. If I can do it on I-5,
there's always
it's not a
Indianapolis.
sport.
Let's go to the racetrack.
I'll go to the racetrack.
Let's
I don't
go.
care.
For 500 laps, good God. It's only like 200 laps. They're 2.5 miles each, but
Oh, yeah, they don't do 500 laps. They do 500 miles. It's not a sport. I mean, it's fun. It's entertaining. Listen, professional wrestling is not a sport. It's an activity.
yeah, because they don't follow uniform rules.
Well, unless the ref doesn't see it. Steel chair. But I don't. It's not a sport.
What, wrestling?
Yeah, professional wrestling is not a sport.
No, it's a
NASCAR is not a
soap opera.
sport.
So if you were to find
Golf
out,
is not a sport.
If you found out
Golf is a
NASCAR
sport.
took physical prowess, you would concede.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing I'm missing is physical prowess.
So
yeah.
if you found the evidence to be true, all right, we're starting here.
Well, are you feel like you're trying to box me into a corner? We'll talk about this in a second. There you go.
Greed, the
Deception, abuse of power, that's no plan. I'm the enemy. Because I like to think. I like to read. I'm into freedom of speech and freedom of choice. I'm the kind of guy that just sit in a greasy spoon and wonder, gee, should I have the T-bone steak with a jumbo rack of barbecue ribs with a side order of gravy fries? I want high cholesterol. I want to eat bacon and butter and buckets of cheese, okay? I want to smoke a Cuban cigar the size of Cincinnati in the non-smoking section. I want to run through the streets naked with green jello all over my body reading Playboy magazine. Why? Because I suddenly might feel the need to, okay, pal? I've seen the future. You know what it is? It's a 47-year-old virgin sitting around in his beige pajamas, drinking a banana broccoli shake, singing, I'm an Oscar Mayer win.
You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network. OutlawRadioNetwork.com.
Outlaw Radio, hour number 2. We're just flailing along.
Flailing?
Flailing. Okay, Phil, what wonderful, grandiose plan do you have to convince me that NASCAR has any type of physical prowess, thus making it a sport? Your mic's not even on.
Yeah, I gotta have the physical prowess with turn on the buttons.
Okay.
I mean, so I mean, you do a little. So my question was, if you were to find that it required, would you concede
Physical prowess,
that?
sure.
I wasn't trying to box you per se. I was
Okay,
like,
sure.
You're
Yeah, I
saying
mean,
that was required.
yeah.
So I mean, for example, just
Can I define what I think by physical prowess before you go any further? Physical prowess means the average person could not do it. The average Joe could not do it.
Okay, so
Okay.
Kevin Nelson mentioned motocross in chat.
Motocross is a sport that requires physical abilities.
Okay.
NASCAR does not.
Okay.
So at least according to this website, it's on the
Mhm.
internet, so it's entirely reliable and trustworthy, right?
Yes, of course. Just like the page that says I'm married to Mandy Moore, but go ahead.
So it talks about drivers experiencing forces around 3 Gs, leading to significant strain, neck and core muscles, heart rate consistently around 80 to 85% maximum. It's like running a marathon, threading a needle. That's what it says.
Okay, they're excited. I'm excited when I have sex. Does that mean I'm an athlete and it's a sport? No!
Well, do you do it for 500 miles?
I'll never tell. I'll never tell. And by the way, it's only 200 laps. Okay. Golf is not a sport.
That's what she
I'm gonna push back on that one.
Golf is not a sport. If John Daly can play golf, smoking a cigarette and drinking a beer, it's not a sport.
It goes back to that prowess thing, though.
You said the average Joe. Can the average Joe be successful at golf?
I'm horrible at golf. I can knock the white off the ball, but I have no idea.
Don't
where
make
it's
this
going.
racial. Come on,
I have
Tom.
no. Okay, yeah. Give me a pink ball then. I
Pink
can
ball.
knock the pink off the ball.
Don't be
I still-
anti-LGBTQ, Tom.
Give me a yellow ball then.
Don't make this
Whatever.
against Asians. Come on, Tom.
I can't steer it. Right.
Golf's not a sport.
I've tried. I cannot
Golf is
steer
not
a
a
golf
sport.
ball. I will give golf respect.
Junior Kennedy, look up Formula One racing workouts. These guys are definitely athletes.
Yeah, Formula One, that's a whole new animal.
Tanner Kennedy also said Kevin as a NASCAR driver would Earnhardt himself in the first race. I didn't realize you could use Earnhardt as a verb. I'm really impressed with that. That's awesome. All right. We're gonna get
He was trying to come up with something to describe it, but he really kind of came up against a wall. So
really
too soon?
Really
Too soon?
Waka waka.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I don't know.
Are we
what
back
do
to
with you.
flailing?
So how would you measure the average Joe NASCAR thing? Would it be you're the average Joe if you could get out there and successfully even do 20 laps?
Well, I could do 20 laps.
Think so?
Yeah.
At full
Yeah.
speed
Yeah.
racing,
Yeah.
inches away from the other competitors.
They're not sharp turns, man. Go out to that
Not
track.
NASCAR.
I have been out to the Las Vegas Motor Speedway where they have the Las Vegas NASCAR race. And I know that people think that left-hand turns are hard, but it's a triable track. It's not even a circle. It's a triangle. So
The next question is, can you do this but maintain like top 5?
yeah, well, you don't have to be top 5. Danica Patrick was one of the most famous NASCAR racers in the world because she was an attractive woman. Let's be honest. She never won a race, and yet she was famous and made a living out of it and did it for years. So you don't have to be in the top 5.
No, I wasn't
you just have to
asking
do
for
it.
about her.
She was in
I'm
so
asking-
many wrecks, it was nuts. I would do better than Danica Patrick. I'll tell you that right now.
This will be expensive to test.
Yes, it will.
It's
but,
not.
But I
it's
do
not
want to
a
be there
sport.
because I want to meet Danica Patrick.
Debbie Taylor wins the Derby. She's not an athlete.
I didn't say the Derby was athletic.
What's the difference? I think the Derby is more athletic than actually NASCAR. Because when you're in those cars and the bumps you take and the toll on your physical body, yeah. Lori's brought in some beads for the night. This is awesome. Those are Tom's. Those are Tom's. Tom, where did you get these from?
These are your sport.
Where did you get these from? I don't want to know now. All right, can we get back into some topics?
To
real
quote
quick?
a movie you probably don't know, Kevin. What in the wild world of sports is going on in there?
I have no idea. Tom is way too happy to have these beads, so I'm gonna leave it alone. All right,
These are like pro level size beads.
Pro level?
Oh, is this like sport beads?
I don't know. These are Lori's beads.
I wonder if they've been used. All right.
You wanted a sport. Here it is.
This is not a sport.
This is.
Listen, softball.
These are your
softball,
boards.
not a sport.
These are your beads.
Women's softball, sport. Rec softball, not a sport. What Paul does, not a sport. You know how I know? Because any schmuck can join a softball league. Does not make you an athlete. Does not make you an athlete. Does not make it a sport.
Bowling, sport or not?
Ooh, bowling. Activity. No, it's not a sport.
Okay.
Not a sport.
Yeah, bowling, I think.
I have friends who bowled 300 games.
Yeah.
Trust me, they're the furthest thing from an athlete.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, I think bowling's one of those gray areas.
No, bowling's not a gray area. Bowling is an activity, not a sport. Anything else? Video games, not a sport. Not a sport.
No.
I don't care what you tell yourself in Vegas and all the major league gaming stuff. Not a sport.
Not a sport.
Wrestling, regular wrestling, like
definitely
what
a
you do in the
sport.
Jello. No. Oh no, you mean like Olympic style wrestling? No, that's a sport. Yeah, that's a sport
like
for sure.
Greco-Roman.
Anything in the Olympics is a sport.
Yes.
Shooting, competitive shooting in the Olympics.
Let me think about competitive.
You did say
shooting.
anything in the Olympics.
Okay, I might have to revise that. Let me think about that just for a second.
Yeah.
No, it's not a sport.
Yeah,
It's not a sport.
Are you saying any Joe can be competitively?
Any
a
Joe
shooter?
can shoot a gun?
I'm gonna.
No, I didn't say could shoot a gun. I said do it
if
competitively.
any Joe practices enough,
No,
and gets enough training and experience.
Now
and
this is something we could test. If you're any Joe,
I was really good with weapons when I was in. I mean, I was Navy, so we only really practiced with a handgun, but I was really good. I was pretty solid.
Yeah, competitive shooter. I'm going to stick with sport. On
Sport?
that one.
What? Anybody, if they're
No.
given unlimited resources and time to train and all that investment, can become competent. They may not become best in the world, but they can become competent if they devote that amount of time to it.
Bobsledding.
Definitely a sport.
You just get in the
No,
like
they
cool runnings.
They steer that with their entire body. They control the speed with their entire body. When they go up on angles and banks, they're using their entire body to control
But
that bobsled.
jockeys are not.
Jockeys are not. No, because the horse is doing all the work.
The jockeys are steering the horse.
The horse knows where to go. The only thing
usually
the
have
jockey's
blinders on.
done is beat the crap out of their
The
backside.
horse-
That's
hor-
it.
The horse knows to turn left.
Yes.
Rhythmic dancing.
Rhythmic dancing. Not a sport.
How about synchronized team?
Anything that is a
synchronized team
subjective,
swimming.
anything that's a subjective winner is not a sport. Gymnastics, not a sport. It's all opinion. Who wins and loses is all an opinion on some judges.
Come on, Simone Biles. Let's talk. And Sean Johnson East.
Well, unless they're going to come down here and kick my ass, I'm not changing my answer. If who wins is subjective, it's not a sport.
So ice skating,
Synchronized swimming, not a sport.
Ice skating.
Real swimming, sport.
ice skating.
Ice skating, not a sport.
Couples
Speed
ice-
skating, sport.
Oof.
Taekwondo,
Oh.
only if you play until someone's dead. Then it would be a sport.
So
anything with subjective scoring is not a sport.
See, here's where
Let me ask you a question.
Taekwondo gets a little touchy there
Right,
because it's visually judged.
Mhm.
So arguably is
Let
subjective.
me ask you a question.
Okay.
If you watched a skating program, okay?
Yep.
You watched 3 different couples programs do skating, ice skating, figure skating.
Okay.
Could you identify what the scoring criteria is or how one was better than the other? Or would they all look the same to you?
Because I'm not a big fan.
Yeah.
It all just kind of looks the same to me.
There's no clear rules. It's all subjective.
No, because I've got family there are big fans of ice skating, figure skating.
And your family need to quit drinking. But go ahead.
And my dad was actually a gymnast.
I'm getting hitting below the belt now, aren't I?
Yeah. No. I just like
sport.
with the gymnastics stuff, I understand the the parameters for how they judge. Just
but it's all
'cause
subjective.
been-
If it wasn't subjective, then every judge would have the exact same score. But it's subjective. Opinions come into play. Opinion should not come into play in sports.
At least that's your opinion.
But I'm right.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, if you have a panel
go
of
check the chat.
judges that are all gymnasts and they all say, well, that was a 9.5 front handspring or whatever,
okay,
then I mean that's it's not being judged by just anyone, it's being judged by experts.
Okay. John Walker, pool and darts, and also Corey asked, what about pool? I'll handle darts first. Not a sport. Activity.
Oh, agreed.
Activity. Pool. Activity.
Agreed.
Now you might get really good at your activity, but it's not a sport. Billiards is not a sport.
Hey, agreed. If I can actually get better at throwing darts or shooting pool after I drink a few beers, it's definitely not a sport.
Slap battle, not a sport.
No, that's ridiculous.
Slap battle's not a sport.
Man, pool was great though in college. That's how I fed myself. You do the turkey shoot.
A lot of
the weekends.
A lot
or
of balls.
No, but you win a tournament, you got a turkey or a ham.
Corey said, Kevin, with that train of thought, anybody with enough practice and money, wrong one, can be good at anything. That's not true. Like, not anybody can be a good NFL player. There's physical requirements to go with that: body types, muscle mass, strength, agility. And you can't make me a starting wide receiver in the NFL. I'm 6 foot. I could not be a wide receiver in the NFL. They probably want me to be like 6'2", 6'3", 6'5".
See, I'm going to disagree with that though, because there's always those players, I mean, you've heard about those rare instances of players that show up and don't fit the mold and they excel.
Corey Collins, arm wrestling, sport.
Yeah.
Sport.
Yeah. Test of strength.
Fishing.
Game of luck.
First of all, let me say this. I love you, Dad. I know you're in heaven. I'm sure you spent Father's Day fishing. It does not make you an athlete. It is not a sport.
No.
And
Game
my dad would agree. My dad would say I was out fishing.
So like competitive bass fishing
is not a sport.
Not a sport. No.
It's competition.
There's no physical prowess. Any idiot can go out. But by the way, bass fishing or any kind of fishing is luck. Because no matter what bait you put down, no matter what you throw in the water, there's no guarantee that you have no say in the size of fish you catch.
Well, depends.
You're just catching a fish.
Depends on what you're going for.
It could be a baby fish. It could be a massive,
you have a
huge
say.
ass fish. No, you don't.
Absolutely.
How?
For example,
Get the bees off. I swear to God.
You want to catch a big halibut? You use big bait, big gear. That's what it takes.
But there's no guarantee you're going to catch the winning.
I didn't say there was a.
But that's what I'm saying. In sports,
there's no guarantee.
Athletes have a say in their performance.
There's no guarantee.
In football, Tom Brady had to throw the ball correctly to win. He didn't go out there and just chuck the ball up in the air and then pray that somebody ran under it.
It looks like Fruit of the Loom underwear guy.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what the hell's wrong with me.
Where do we start?
Can you take a picture of this and put it on our Facebook page, please, before I take it off? For those of you on AM, you're totally missing out on the feed. I've been covered in blue balloons, and now I look like the grape, or purple balloons, and now I look like the grape guy from the Fruit of Loom ads.
You remind me of a Greek god.
Which one?
Bacchus.
Dionysus, Bacchus, same guy.
I don't know who's Dionysus and Bacchus.
He's
Give us
the
legit
the one
mythology.
in Fantasia that was eating the grapes.
His the god of
Can you
wine
take
and
one more
revelry.
picture? It would be perfect for my profile page. That'd be great.
So
Make it my
cheerleading,
profile photo.
sport or no sport?
It's not a sport because it's subjective. The scoring is subjective. Any sport that has subjective scoring is not a sport. It's an activity. Got it?
Well, depending on who you ask, some people think some of these football scores are subjective. Well, is a ref blind?
Will you say that to me, please? This was great. Kevin looks like his casual grinder meetup. Okay, that's not.
What?
That's not necessary. That's not necessary.
Now,
And by the way, that's where Paul is tonight.
So, how
He's-
exactly does J. Andrew Kennedy know about this? Just asking.
Do you really want an answer to that?
Kevin,
Not
could
really.
you be a placeholder for the kicker? Do you mean that in sexual terms, Corey? I'm just kidding. No, I could not be.
You know, since we started this topic, we've got more viewers.
Have we?
Yeah.
This is a hot button topic.
We're
People
up,
are sick of hearing about Donald Trump and Joe Biden. They want to talk about, is this a sport or not?
we're up by roughly 20%.
And I'm going to tell you right now,
Objectively.
I don't even know the difference anymore. If the scoring is subjective, if any average schmuck can do it, it is not a sport. If you can do it with a cigarette dangling out of your mouth and a beer in your hand, John Daly, in golf, it is not a sport.
Bowling.
Bowling's not a sport.
I know. I
Activity.
was,
Any-
bowling. Usually there's a beer in hand.
What? Chess.
Not a sport.
Not a sport. There's no physical prowess.
Magnificent game of strategy, but not a sport.
Andrew Kennedy, who hasn't had balls on Kevin's face, is not even gay at this point. Heather, marching band, not a sport.
Hey, not everyone can do that. I
No,
tried.
but the scoring is subjective. It is, if the scoring is subjective, it's not a sport.
If you're a kid in marching band, there is no scoring going on. Just saying. No matter what you think happens at band camp.
Corey said, it's amazing what I can do with a cigarette hanging off my lip. Amen to you, Corey. Margie says, Naked and Afraid XL. Have you guys watched Naked and Afraid?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Naked and Afraid is a sport.
No, it's not.
No, it is.
No.
It is. Because you have to be in supreme physical health to survive that.
No, you don't.
You do.
No, you don't.
To survive, to actually win that thing.
No, you don't.
That's a sport.
You need to have a good set of skills, and you need to be locked down between the ears, but you don't need.
But you've got to be physically fit and healthy. You have to have some physical prowess
Well,
to do that.
You know, it doesn't.
By the way, why are there not because they always put a guy and a girl together? You ever notice nobody's banging on that show? Like you have two naked people in the middle of the outback and nobody's having sex.
Do you know how hard they're working?
They're complaining how cold it is outside, and yet they're not keeping each other warm.
Well, I'm sure they're keeping each other
I'm just
warm,
telling
but probably not that way.
Kevin McMahon, I don't want to mispronounce your name, Kevin. So Kevin says, is boxing a sport? Oh, it certainly is.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, boxing's a sport.
Oh,
Physical
yes.
prowess. Now, what's going to come up is the scoring at the end. That's subjective, and that's horse crap. But you can avoid the subjective scoring by knocking your opponent out.
Yep.
Okay. Corey Collins says it's on the Discovery Channel. They're not going to show people banging. Why not? They show animals on the Discovery Channel having sex all the time. We are out in the Tibetan wetlands, and there are two musk oxes that are about to fornicate. Let's watch. They do that all the time. on the Discovery Channel.
Cue the
Kevin, there's a
Bloodhound
channel
gang.
for you. It's called Pornhub.
Pornhub.
Saying we're queuing up the Bloodhound gang here now.
Pornhub / Black Ring Spirits.
Check out our
Kennedy.
OnlyFans.
Andrew Kennedy said, "I would keep Kevin warm AF. He's a little spoon though." Spoken like a true Michigan graduate. Scuba diving scuba diving is not a sport. Now, if you were scuba diving racing, that'd be a sport because you have a winner and a loser. It's not subjective.
Not anyone can scuba dive though.
Dragon boat.
And
Dragon boat? What is it?
Dragon boat.
Hold on, Phil. Go ahead.
I was just thinking. I mean, obviously, you could create a competition around some sort of scuba diving activity.
Sure. If you were scuba diving racing, that would be a sport. Scuba diving itself is not a sport because how do you win? What? There has to be a winner and a loser for it to be a sport.
You don't drown.
You don't
That's how
drown.
you win.
So then everybody gets a participation trophy that survives, Tom.
Oh, we used to play tag underwater.
Okay.
In scuba gear.
I think tag is a sport.
Is that a sport now?
Tag is a sport.
Throwing your scuba gear.
Tag itself is a sport.
Okay.
You have a winner or a loser. There's a clear set of rules. There's no subjective judging.
Dodgeball.
Red light, green light.
Red light, green light. What were the rules to red light, green light? Because I don't remember.
Red mean
we
go.
didn't play red light, green light.
Wait, no.
Back when I know it's a little different when you were a kid, but when I was a kid,
I'm the same age as
we
you.
actually had more things to play with than rocks and sticks. Go ahead, Lord. What were the
part of
rules?
Stanwood were you in?
Yeah.
I was in the rich part of Stanwood where we had running water and
I had running water.
and potties in the house. What were the rules to red light, green light?
Red light, you had the person up front. They would turn away. So you were running towards their back and you're trying to run as fast as possible without them turning around and saying red light. Because when they say red light, you have to freeze. And if you move after they say red light and they catch you, you're out. And you're trying to touch their shoulder.
So this sounds like a Bill Cosby game. Okay. All right. I got it.
Dragon boat.
What is a dragon boat?
22 people in a boat with a dragon head at the front, Lake Washington, Lake Union, racing against other teams.
Again,
One, to not sink, and two, to get to the other side of the shore.
But again, how are they racing? How are the boats propelled?
By oars.
By oars.
Yeah, every person on the boat except
Sport.
for the caller.
Sport. Because
is
you have an actual winner.
rowing.
You have an actual winner. You have a clear set of rules, and the scoring is not subjective. The winner is not subjective.
Okay.
You win because you cross the finish line first.
Okay.
Hydros, not a sport. The boat's doing all the work.
You ever driven?
Sorry, Chip
those?
Hanauer.
Chip Hanauer, not an athlete.
Super nice guy though.
Squid Games, I don't know the rules to Squid Games. I've heard of it, but I don't play on TikTok, so I don't know what Squid Games are. So I have no idea what Squid Games are, so I can't.
It was a show on Netflix, I believe, although I never saw it.
The floor is lava.
Oh, good Lord.
Sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, clear set of rules. Physical prowess is required because you're hopping from place to place or whatever. The average schmo couldn't do it because I don't think I could jump from the couch to the futon. And scoring is not subjective. Corey says, I say anyone can learn to swim and then get their license. I said scuba diving was not a sport. Racing while scuba diving is a sport because of the other things I specified. But racing's a sport. So the scuba doesn't make it a sport. The racing makes it a sport. We got to get off this subject. We're back after this. It's Outlaw Radio. I'm always right. Da, 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 da. Margie, skydiving, not a sport. Well, again, there's not a winner or loser in skydiving unless your parachute doesn't open. And then you didn't fail because of your prowess. You failed because the equipment failed, which does not make it a sport.
Which does remind me of the old classic saying, if at first you don't succeed, don't try skydiving.
Don't try skydiving.
Oh.
Janet Kennedy said, impressive stuff here. We played sneak out, smoke plants, and don't get caught. If you lose, the results were very physical. That's true. Doesn't mean it's a sport. It was still subjective. The punishment was subjective, depending if it was mom or dad who caught you.
Kick the can.
Not a sport.
Okay.
I don't even know what the rules were to kick a can or spin the bottle for that matter. I don't really understand the rules.
Paragliding.
Paraglide, not a sport. If you're
It's
now
amazing in
if you're
Oahu, though.
paragliding racing, maybe it's a sport. But again, you have to have a winner or loser for it to be a sport.
Stall racing.
Stall racing?
Yeah, short takeoff landing plane.
But it's a race.
It is
but
a
you're
race.
not racing. The plane is doing the racing. Therefore, it's not a sport.
But you are the pilot who has to, in some cases, these guys are taking off in
Sure.
like inches.
But you could do it in a flight simulator. You
No,
could do the
no.
exact same. Hold on.
No, it's
You
not
could
the
do the
same.
exact same thing at your computer desk with a flight simulator program and a joystick. Does not make you an athlete.
It would
does
be
not make it a sport.
simulated, but no.
Yeah.
If you're in the plane, the adrenaline's going.
If the adrenaline's going, then anything can be a sport. Crossing the street in Seattle can be a sport.
All right.
Walking down Callow Avenue in Bremerton
15 seconds.
at 3 a.m. can be a sport if adrenaline's a requirement.
All right.
Coming back after this, Outlaw Radio. All right, Outlaw Radio. Any other sports we want to throw up against the wall for me to opine on before we change the subject?
Battle of the Bands.
Battle of the Bands.
There was some ping pong and dodgeball mentioned in chat.
Okay, hold on. Battle of the Bands is not a sport because of the subjective scoring. There's no outright winner or loser in Battle of the Bands. There has to be judges. And if there's judges, it's not a sport. Okay. What else? Dodgeball? Sport. Physical prowess? Winner, loser? Non-subjective scoring system? Clear set of rules.
At this point, hopscotch is a sport then.
No, because if a 5-year-old can do it, it's not a sport.
Yeah, 5-year-old can do it, but a 32-year-old sometimes can't.
I can do it. I would rock it some hopscotch. If hopscotch was an Olympic event, I'd be there. Tom, what was the other one you said?
Oh, there were just two. It was dodgeball and
musical chairs.
Musical chairs.
Oh no, that's funny.
Pickleball.
Okay,
Pickleball
first
is
of
not
all,
a sport.
whoever asked about pickleball, you need to go F yourself. All right, that is Jay Inslee's creation. It is his way to make Bainbridge Island relevant because God knows they're not. If you want, it's not a sport. If 90-year-old grandmas can play it, it's not a sport.
The
I used to
competitive
play
pickleball players?
in high school
Yeah, but Jay Inslee's pushed it.
at Jim Durham's house.
Did
There are
you?
people
Yeah,
that
he had.
What,
his
do you remember
pickleball
when we
court.
used to play? We used to play. Remember the little boards on wheels? We used to play scooter basketball. Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Well, some people played a sport. We just played to kill
But do you
people and
remember
knock
that?
them
Yeah,
over.
when we were on the little square
scooter
woods
boards.
with the little wheels on.
Yeah.
Our kids don't get to do that now. We would
Oh, really?
we would push. I don't ever heard my kids playing anything on a little scooter board.
Youth
And we would
group
push
had
our
it at church.
we would push ourselves around on the floor on the wheels with the ball. We played basketball. It was great. That was
I
definitely
remember
a
that.
sport.
The
Yeah.
little thing, you got to keep your hands in the right spot.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Otherwise, you run over your fingers. Yeah.
Basically, it was training us for those Costco cards.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Say anything fun like that you can't do anymore. 'Cause,
No.
you can roll over your fingers and hurt them. That's like lawn
you go.
darts.
Lawn darts. And hold on. Is lawn darts a sport?
Hells yes.
If you're risking death, it's a sport.
Yeah, there's clear winner and loser.
which circles us right back to NASCAR.
No, because NASCAR, the car's doing all the work. You're not.
You're risking death.
If you're doing the work, you have to do that. That's the key thing to be in sport, right? Above all else, you have to be doing the work.
So
You can't rely on the horse to carry you or the car to drive you.
So
What are you doing? Hold on. Dating Kevin Chambers is not a sport. No, because it's very subjective.
Uh-oh.
yeah, and there's not much scoring going on.
Musical chairs.
Oh. Damn.
You're number one. You're number one.
It was not as of lately.
Wow.
He's got a new set of
Corey
rules, I
says
think.
I was going to say there's clearly a winner and a loser when he dates. That's not even nice. You guys are not even supportive. But it's subjective. So anything with subjective scoring is out the window. Anything with subjective scoring is out the window, except boxing, because if you can avoid subjective scoring, then it's still a sport.
What about car racing for titles? Pink slips.
Again, the car's doing all the work.
You had to build it.
Car's doing all the work.
Oh, what was that? The way they did the
J. Andrew Kennedy, dating Kevin is a sport. You have endured 3 inches rock hard coming at you from all angles. If you survive, you are a champion.
Damn.
J. Andrew Kennedy's significant other told him to give him 6 inches and make it hurt, so he did it 3 times and then punched her in the face.
you remember how it was in Le Mans? So there's the car race portion of it, but it starts as a foot race.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a sport.
Kind of a sport.
Any other sports before we move off the subject?
Well, I'm sure there's a whole globe full more.
I think we've covered every single sport.
No.
Camel racing, not a sport. They're camels. Okay. Any other sports? I'm pausing for a sec to give the chat room time to catch up before we change subjects.
Kevin says, burn.
I know. Kevin Nelson. I love Kevin Nelson, but he takes way too much happiness in watching me get my ass handed to me. Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. I don't even know what the hell that is, Lori. What are you making up over there? I have not seen the movie Dodgeball.
Oh.
It's got Will Ferrell in it. I'm not a huge Will Ferrell fan.
I think J. Andrew Kendry has a typo. I hope so.
Kevin's first sexual contract is a foot race?
Contract.
Oh, contract. Oh, sexual contract. Well, I had to chase her down. All right. Can we change the subject now?
We should.
We are going to talk in the third hour about. We're not even going to get politics in the third hour. Okay.
We haven't really talked politics yet.
We did. We talked it with Frank.
Well,
We're going to talk about it now. You ready?
Okay, go.
Ready? Here's a story that came out. So Joe Biden has been giving a whole bunch of speeches, and in his speeches lately, he's been giving his warnings. I use air quotes. Warnings about the dangers of Donald Trump and what would happen if he was reelected president. So I'm going to read to you what he said. He said, institutions matter. What Trump did on January 6th, and now he's literally saying if he doesn't win, there'll be a bloodbath. It's outrageous. What he's talking about is outrageous. Now, I know we got a lot of people in the chat, and I think some people in this building that are going to vote for Trump. So I'm not trying to dissuade you from voting or not voting for the Donald. Okay. My question is, and this I'll pose this to the people in the chat as well. Is there a concern from any of you that if Trump loses the election, we see another January 6th thing? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If Trump loses the election, do any of you have any fear of another January 6th type thing? Regardless of how good or bad you think it was. That's not the question.
Okay. Regardless of who wins the election, I think November is going to be a very ugly month.
Okay, but you didn't answer my question. Do you think Trump specifically increases that risk if he loses? Meaning, there's a lot of people who say that Donald Trump encouraged January 6th.
Right.
Okay. So do
I'm actually
you
in the
think
middle
he
of a
would
book about that
encourage
right now.
anything along those lines again if he lost?
No.
You don't think so?
No, because honestly, like I said, I'm in the middle of a book about that right now, and I don't think Orange Man was bothered enough to. I think what happened on January 6th was completely separate from anything that had anything to do with anything Donald said that day. Okay,
No, but in the days ahead of time, right?
I think January 6th was going to happen regardless, right? Donald, he didn't have to have a press conference. He didn't have to show up. He didn't have to be in the limelight that day at all. I think that was going to happen. There was going to be a riot.
But didn't he encourage it in the weeks up to?
Well, probably.
Didn't he encourage people taking their government back, stand up, protest, make some noise?
Well,
all
I mean,
that
that was his rhetoric for, I mean, more than days. I mean, weeks and months.
After the election.
Right.
Bob Ross?
It occurs to me, will another January 6th happen, you say? I say no. Because, I mean, at least at this juncture, I think Mike Johnson will do a way better job than Nancy Pelosi at keeping the Capitol safe.
You think so?
Well, there's that too, yeah.
I mean, it's not much of a sport.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question though. Would he? Trump loses and the Democrats are going to swear in Biden again. They're going to ratify Biden as reelected. Do you think Mike Johnson would lock it down? Or do you think Mike Johnson would just like kind of just tuck his head away? And
I think he has a better chance of doing a better job than Pelosi.
Well, I
mean, that whole situation was just crazy.
I think a corpse would do better at that job than Nancy Pelosi.
Like, there's more security at this building.
Probably.
I mean, and truthfully, I just don't know how involved the FBI is with their plans and influence and all this whole thing either. I just don't know.
I don't know.
So, I mean, if they're still involved, they could persuade people along again.
I
believe in such things.
Lori, do you think if Trump loses, we run the risk of another January 6th?
Can you qualify that more? Do you mean
the day after the 5th and the day
hold
before
on.
the 7th? Yes.
Hold on. Chill out.
Okay.
wait to
I'm
hear what I'm
breathing.
saying.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Do you think that Trump is going to incite this, or do you think that the masses are going to do this on their own?
I think both, right? I mean, again, it could be argued that Trump encouraged it in the days and weeks following the election. And so, do you think that his actions, if he were to lose again, would support that?
I think that if Trump is calling for it or inciting it in any way, I think a lot of people hang back because they don't want to rip the country apart. But, or however, whatever you want to say, if Trump is just accepting of things, I think a lot of people are just not going to accept
That
that
he
Biden
loses?
wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's too much. There's just too many people have woken up, I guess you would say.
Right.
You know?
Bob Ross?
I mean, to be really blunt, I mean, if you're going to have an insurrection, if you're going to be charged for an insurrection, next time bring guns.
I was going to say,
I mean,
an insurrection requires, prior planning and plentiful weapons. And all the weapons charges for January 6th were improvised things like fire extinguishers.
Oh, they certainly weren't
and-
planning to do what they.
No,
I mean,
no. So insurrection is just that. That's
well, keep in
just
mind,
not the
I
right
never
label.
said insurrection. I
Right.
just said January 6th.
Right.
Okay, so I didn't say it was legal, illegal, insurrection, protest. I didn't say anything. I'm just asking for the scenario. And Anna Marie, I'll get to your question in just a moment.
I
Larry.
would say that the January 6th was planned, except for the weapons. I think a lot of people were looking at it as an answer to the BML or BLM riots or protests, whatever you want to call them, in Summer of Love. And so a lot of people were like, we're going to be peaceful, but we are going to protest. We are going to show up at the Capitol.
Like they really
and then
were
things
peaceful.
happened, but there was a lot of planning. There were a lot of chats that I was privy to, and I was like, whoa.
Well, let me. I'm gonna read really quick. I'm gonna read what Anne Marie said. By January 6th, do you mean the nonsense and drama from the Democrats, acting as if the plants in the group from the DOJ, FBI were just a coincidence? This country will be at a breaking point in November if Biden ends up winning. The bigger question is, will we even get to November? Bird flu, another super amazing virus that somehow spreads across species, is the panic and run currently. So let me break down Anne's questions. First of all, January 6th is exactly what I said it was a moment ago. Just a fruition of events. Does Trump win and people plant it? Maybe. I mean, does Trump lose and people plant it? Maybe. I mean, I to ignore the fact, and I don't know if you're doing this, Anne, so please take this with all the graciousness and kindness I have in my heart. To ignore the fact that conservatives and Republicans were hand and foot involved in January 6th. Remember, there's video of a lot of them going into Pelosi's office, right? And so is that against the law? It certainly is. Well, does it constitute high treason? That's a whole different conversation.
Right now, I mean, we can say that blocking I-5 to protest Palestinian the Palestinian conversation, blocking up I-5 is also against the law.
Sure.
It's not an insurrection.
No, and I'm not calling January 6th an insurrection.
Right.
I'm merely suggesting that the idea that somehow it was all because the DOJ and the FBI and liberals had plants in there, they very well may have. But let's not forget that there were some conservatives in there that were running amok as well.
Yeah.
And I don't give a who you are. If you get into the Capitol and you find your way to their offices and you get into their offices, you're breaking the law.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but it's true. And we have those idiot douchebags taking photos of themselves in Pelosi's office to post on their social media. You're breaking the law. Insurrection? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Idiot lawbreakers? Certainly.
I agree with everything you just said. I think January 6th has been
Mm.
spun to be very anti-conservative or
Yes, it has been.
Weaponize something and look at they're bad.
Sure. And I will say this too. They gained access to the Capitol questionably. Right? Now, I've heard the doors are being opened for them. That's fine. I've heard that they broke the glass and let themselves in. I don't know. Can you honestly tell me any of them thought they had a legal right to be there? Was the Capitol closed? I'll answer that for you. It was closed. Okay. So again, insurrection, I'm not going to go that far. Were there people in there chanting for Mike Pence's head on a silver tray? They certainly were.
Mm-hmm.
Did they gain access into the Capitol? Some of them certainly did. Are they insurrectionists? Those specific people? Certainly.
Did Pelosi call down the police?
I don't know.
I mean, she had them stand down.
Yeah, I
because
don't
they
know.
had a status meeting on the 5th about it.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I know.
There's a whole bunch of different rubs to this whole thing. Trump could have done more. Pelosi could have done more. Pence could have done more. Biden certainly could have done more. If Biden had just addressed the concerns, the talk after the election was, well, if you think this was a rigged job, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. Well, you're telling 40% of Americans you don't know what you're talking about. If Biden had just heard the concerns and responded to them respectfully, and again, this is pancake board we're talking about. But if he could have responded to it in a way that said, I hear your concerns, and not belittled people and told them they were stupid, that might have gone a long way to diffusing what happened on January 6th before it even got there. But instead, people heard the White House, sorry, not the White House, the successor to the White House come out with his peeps every day and say, well, if you think this was a fraud or a sham or there was any irregularities, you don't know what you're talking about. You're stupid. I mean, he helped push them to the cliff before they jumped.
Yeah.
And that's a freaking fact.
And just to address the other part regarding the bird flu.
Yeah.
I agree with the tone of that comment. I will say that the bird flu was also a thing, for lack of not wanting to go any further politically, was a thing back in Obama's term. In fact, I was part of the planning for our town at that time.
For how to get bird flu there and deliver it to the masses and get everybody
the
infected?
vaccine
Oh,
and
okay.
do drive-through vaccines.
Were
And
you in Stanwood at that time?
Yeah.
Were you? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And, how we were going to do it, the most effective, efficient way, car by car. We were doing a drive-through thing at one of the sports complexes.
Is it still true that Stanwood uses dial-up for their internet? Go ahead.
Probably. But Obama pulled the plug and said no at the last minute. I mean, this was literally like a week before we were supposed to start running the vaccine through the town. So,
Well, I think that Anne Marie is insinuating that that something like bird flu will show up this year and keep us from having an election.
It already is.
I will tell you this right now, and I might be Pollyanna. If Paul was here, he would call this recency bias or whatever. I think if they tried to shut down things again, it'd be over in a heartbeat. Because I think enough conservatives and Republicans have already made that clear. But I think a lot of moderates, libertarians, and blue dog Reagan Democrats have had enough. So you might be able to convince the far left and the people that are really sympathized to the whole thing. But I don't think you could shut down the entire government, the entire country again. I don't think you could.
No.
I think that enough people would say we're not doing this again.
Yeah, not unless there was something that was visible and tangible. A 9.0 earthquake, that takes out the power grid and sinks the West Coast. People step in line and listen to the government. But yeah, vaccines.
There's a 9.0. We're on our own.
Yeah.
I've been part of the team planning what to do for Cascadia Rising.
Oh,
event.
yeah. No, I've been part of some planning.
Working on trying to get that 3 weeks of preparation.
3 weeks is not enough. It's more like 6 months.
That's where I'm starting.
Yeah.
It's more like 6 months.
Holly said COVID infections are on the rise again. They are. I have a hard time getting concerned about COVID at this point, and I'm not trying to be insensitive, but my hope would be is that the people that are immunosuppressed that needed to get the vaccine got it. I'm not like a lot of the Republicans and conservatives out here that are screaming the vaccines are necessary for certain people.
Yes.
Vaccines were important for certain people, those with downgraded immunity response, those who had severe medical issues, those who had respiratory distress problems, COPD, all of that. Both my parents had the vaccine and handled multiple doses of them very well. I don't have an issue with it. If you're otherwise healthy, you wanted a vaccine, more power to you. Who cares? Like literally, you do you, boo. What I don't like is the mandates.
Yes.
Because the idea that if you got the shot, you were helping the person in front of you in line, that's stupid and ridiculous.
And
because
not
they
true.
proved, not true, because they proved that even if you had the shot, you could still get COVID. It just wouldn't be as bad and you could still pass it. So really the only person you were helping by getting the COVID shot was you, which again is fine if you wanted to take it, but it didn't make any sense where you fired a whole bunch of state patrolmen and a whole bunch of ferry workers and sent a whole bunch of people home and said, you can't work here anymore because you didn't get the shot because you're not going to help people when the shot was never going to help anybody anyway, but you. Phil?
I would just suggest amending perhaps the statement instead of vaccine, the COVID therapeutic, because it does not prevent it. It does not
That's
reduce.
fine, yeah.
It's truly a therapeutic. I mean, anything of any rational intellectual understanding of what a vaccine is historically. I mean, people were against like smallpox and polio vaccines because they were, I don't know about this. Those things actually stopped polio.
Yeah.
And stopped the transmission.
Yeah. And you're right, because nothing that they have on the market now stops COVID. It reduces it. And again, I really do believe if you are immunocompromised or if you've got other medical or physical ailments that COVID can really play off into, then the vaccine's a great idea. I believe. I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on the radio. That's just my opinion. Now, what I don't like is seeing the uptick in cardio issues with specifically young men, but 25 and unders who got the vaccines, and suddenly we started seeing issues with hearts and what was it, myocardia and a whole bunch of myocarditis. Thank you, and a whole bunch of other stuff that we'd never seen at those levels before. I think there's concerns with the vaccines. I think that impacts certain people in different ways.
Clearly, from looking at Holly's posts, I think she's still drinking that Kool-Aid. I still see people walking down the road by themselves on the sidewalk masked up. I mean, and that's their choice. I hope they get the mental health care they need. Something happened. It's horrible that happened to people.
And
it was more than just the COVID scare.
Yeah. But I would also say that some people in my own family are still masked up, and it's because they had severe issues. As a result.
I refuse to mock people who mask up. Like literally, if you want to mask up, more power to you. I'm really in this you do you boo thing. Yeah. People that ride in the car by themselves with their masks on, I want to giggle a little bit. But the end result is you are an adult or a person, or not even an adult. You can be a 5-year-old. I don't care.
It's not hurting anything.
You're not hurting nobody. No. You're not hurting me. You're not hurting. You do you.
Yep.
And I might think it's silly, but I'm not going to pass judgment on you for living your life. I want to come back to something Holly said in the chat because I want Holly to explain this to me because maybe I'm missing the correlation. And Holly, I mean this. Now, you did do a little jab, talking to this group is you guys aren't going to listen, but it's okay. She said it's important that others vaccinate and mask to help protect others. It's not stupid, but people will say anything to justify their selfishness. Long COVID is a thing, but I realize it's like speaking to a brick wall with this crowd. See, there's a little poke at us, okay? Now, the masking I'm going to give you. Because if you are concerned that spittle carries the COVID and you're talking, then I can see the correlation. I'm not going to say I agree with it or not, because I honestly don't know, but I can understand the correlation. So I'm not going to argue that with you. But why are we getting vaccine to help other people? If getting the vaccine does not keep us from getting COVID and does not keep us from spreading COVID and does not keep us from catching COVID, and it only serves, at least for my research, which literally involved 8 minutes on CNN with a tequila in my hand. But if all it serves is to make it so I don't get COVID as bad, but it doesn't stop me from spreading it or catching it, how can we use the argument, get COVID to help get the vaccines to help take care of people around you? So help me understand. Now the mask, I'm not arguing the mask. I can understand the science behind that. But help me understand why the vaccine helps people around you, because I think it only helps you. And I'll give her time to respond to that. Okay. And I'm not being crappy with Holly. I think I'm asking a reasonable question that I think she can answer. And Holly said people who are masked up in the car alone oftentimes are delivery drivers for LabCorp, and they were assigned to. No, that's yeah. Again, as I said, I snicker when people are in their car with their mask on because I think it's silly. But that's just me in my head. Like, I won't say anything to anybody. I'm not going to shame anybody. There's a lot. I saw some people that wore masks that got treated horribly, man, by people that people out at the stores or whatever. Just tons of attitude, smart ass comments and stuff. Like, shut up. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. I don't care. You don't want to wear. I walked up to somebody in the middle of COVID that was not wearing a mask in Safeway and said, I was wearing a mask because I had elderly parents at home that were at risk. And I told her, I'm glad you're not wearing a mask. I think it's pretty ballsy to go out in public in this atmosphere and not wear a mask. God bless you. More power to you. You do you. Phil?
So what's your take on the, I got a mask, but it's below my nose. And it's just last week.
Again, I don't think it works.
It's like,
but if you want to do it, more power to you. We have somebody that I work with at the escape room who wears a mask all day, every day, everything that she does. And it's actually not about COVID. It's about other stuff. She's got other medical stuff going on. She has to wear the mask. So I think of her every time I see anybody else wearing a mask, and I assume you have a reason you're wearing a mask. Maybe you're wearing a mask that's not covering your nose because you have a buckled grill and you don't want anybody to see your bad teeth. I don't know. It's none of my business. You wear a mask, you do you be happy. And if you're happy wearing a mask everywhere, wear a mask. I don't know why conservatives and Republicans give two rats' asses. What? Conservatives are the biggest bunch of hypocrites on this issue because they preach, stay out of our bedroom, stay out of my life. I don't want the government. I don't want people telling me what to do. I want to live my life. I want to own my guns. I want to have my chickens. I want to do all the things that I want to do. And nobody's telling me I can't until they see somebody walking down the street outside with a mask on. And then they feel like they got to make some smart ass comment about it. Oh, look, they're outside with a mask on. You're not Biden. And it's not necessary.
Not necessary.
Just leave the F alone.
It's not necessary, but because the opposing party to them has mandated that they were supposed to be wearing a mask, they're just lashing out.
I know, but it's dumb.
Agreed, but that's what it is.
Republicans are as big of snowflakes as they accuse the left to be, and vice versa. By the way, like literally.
That's because they're all the same.
You're so sensitive. Oh, they're wearing a mask. Who cares?
I mean, we're all humans who
we're all
have
humans.
Emotions and
they're all the same.
Feelings.
Who cares? You're wearing a mask. Shut up.
Which reminds me, Kevin, did you hear even?
And by one thing, I wouldn't mind if they shut the whole freaking society down again. Because then I wouldn't have to go back to the office one day a week and I could work at home in my underwear 5 days a week and everything would be fine with me. I'd still go to the store. I'd still do all the things I ever did.
Kevin Chambers.
It didn't keep me from going to church, and it's not gonna.
It's not good for most people.
It didn't keep me from going to karaoke, and it's not gonna. I still had
it.
game nights with my friends, and it's not gonna stop me. But if it makes it so I don't have to go to the office one day a week, bring on the COVID.
Stop it. That's not good for the rest of us.
Hold on. So Holly said we're right up against break. Hold on, I'm going to read Holly's when we're on the AM side. I don't want to get halfway into it because we're right up against break. I'll read. We have to, hold. Holly, we can get to yours in break because yours is longer. Corey said, I go into hundreds of customers' houses a month, and the only people wearing the mask are people that have to for health issues, not COVID. Yeah. I think it's important to realize that masks are not just COVID-y. They're a whole bunch of other things. Rick said the real problem with the mask was that they gave people a false sense of security. They'd wear a mask, often incorrectly, and then violate every other rule of infectious disease transmission. Yep. That's probably true, too. I mean, wearing a mask has to come part and parcel to other stuff. Sanitizing your hands, not grabbing yourself privately in public. I mean, there's a number of things you should not do if you're trying to.
I'm not supposed to do that?
You're not supposed to do that, Tom. We need to talk about that on break, by the way.
I'm sorry.
All right. When we go to the AM, I'm going to read Holly's comment, and then we'll pick up the show. We'll get to another topic at 10 o'clock. Coming up at 10:30, we're going to talk about what actors and actresses you cannot stand. Like what movies you will not, what movies you will refuse to see because of the people that are in them. And we'll do some other fun stuff too. It's Father's Day. It's a relaxing day. It's a good day. It's Outlaw Radio. We're back after this. And no Paul. Makes the day even better on Mega Talk. here we go. I'll get to Margie's in a second. I said we read Holly's first. Holly said, first, why is Philip Housel allowed to say people who get vaxxed or masked have mental issues, but I'm not allowed to acknowledge that having this conversation here is a waste of time? Let me answer that before I go to your second question, because I asked you a question and I'm trying to engage in a conversation with you about it. Maybe you talking to Phil about it might be a waste of time in your book because Phil made his comment and you feel like you can't change his mind. But I'm open to an active, open dialogue with you, Holly. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Maybe split a beer, maybe share some nachos and have conversations about the way the world turns. That's why it's not a waste of time. Second, she says, we now know that COVID is airborne and doesn't require droplets to travel. Do it to help yourself or don't. The conversation is pointless. Well, thank you for the last parting jet. Could you have a conversation without taking a shot at us? Is that possible? Probably not. Again, COVID is airborne. That's true. I'm not debating that. This is about the vaccine. This was not about masks. I asked you a specific question about the vaccines. I'm waiting for your answer, and I will patiently continue to do so. Joining us from Vaccine Central, where Paul actually made vaccines in a teacup in the bathroom while he brushed his teeth. It's St. Paul, the voice of treason. Hello, Paul.
Treason. Yeah, that look.
What's up, buddy?
Paul was
the numbers of things that you just said that make me want to beat the holy living daylights out of you. Oh, brother. You're lucky I love you. You are lucky that I love you.
Hey, Paul, look what I'm wearing.
Yes, I know. I was wearing mine too, but it was a little bit hot. And this is so much hotness, I couldn't make it more hot,
Almost enough to thaw ice. Happy Father's Day, my friend.
You too, all of you. Yes. Happy Father's Day to all of you. Hey, first of all, you can't judge, right? You can't judge. How many times have we heard the last few years, right? Don't say Happy Mother's Day. Don't say Happy Father's Day, right? You might offend those people that want to fit into that group, but don't fit into that group or can't fit into that group till they have the sex change. Like, there's a whole kind of things. There's a whole world wrapped up and around this stuff, man. And you got to be very careful nowadays. But you know what? God bless fathers. Yeah.
God bless fathers. Can I give you the line in the chat tonight that is literally going to make us go viral with the Alex Jones crowd?
Oh, no. Really?
Margie said in chat, the vax is loaded with microsperms to invade your brain and create the new robot race.
Did she throw in because they make the frogs gay?
No, she didn't.
Oh my!
I want to respond to Holly. Holly again said, "Again, you paint me as acknowledging the reality as taking a shot at you, but Philip Housel making a derogatory statement is fine. The double standards never change." Okay, Holly. Let me break this down. I'm gonna speak really slow and clearly so that you can understand what I'm about to say. First of all, I told Phil how I disagreed with him without being a dick about it. I said, Phil, in my opinion, if people want to wear a mask in public, more power to them. And I said, quote, you do you, boo. That's what I said. So I didn't have to come at Phil and say, Phil, you're a dick. Phil, you're a Neanderthal. Phil, you're anything. I just said, Phil, I disagree. And here's what I think. That's how rational people have a disagreeable conversation. Secondly, Holly, in my slowest possible words possible, I asked you a question about the vaccine and you did not answer.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Question? Please.
Did you just imitate a person that is, well...
No, I was talking like a guy from New Jersey. I know what it's...
Oh, is that what that was? Okay.
I was talking like a person from New Jersey.
I thought you had some...
Oh, okay, thank God.
I know. As soon as I started talking to my New Jersey accent, I thought, oh, they're going to pick on me and say I'm picking on the mentally challenged. That was not what I intended. It was
mentally challenged?
I wasn't thinking you were down with that kind of thing.
Down with the sickness. All right. All right.
Also, read the next
but
thing.
I will say
Paulie
this,
said
though.
about something about being the daddy. I'm thinking that may back to something you've already suspected.
But here's the deal. Listen, this is part of the issue with the left. I asked a reasonable question about the vaccines to Holly, and instead she wants to attack us and everything else, but not answer the question. That's what the left does. I am in the middle, and I'm having real conversations. Back after this.
Who's your daddy? Who's your baby?
You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network.
I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's all right.
Paul and Holly sitting in a tree. Kissing.
A bunch of a-holes.
What kind of feeling? I'm high on believing.
Outlaw Radio.
You just cracked yourself up.
I'm the funniest guy in the room.
Hey, Paul.
I mean, it literally took 1 minute. Yes, go ahead.
I have some decor items if you would like to decorate Kevin's house. Just let me know.
I would love to decorate Kevin's house. It needs a masculine touch.
Shut your mouth. Shut up. Shut
What?
up.
Isn't that what she was? I thought that's what she was saying.
Holly asked if we talked about the draft thing. Is there a draft thing to talk about?
Oh yeah.
So
the proposal that
women are supposed to be.
Oh, that I see.
fairness.
Hold on, and I'm being serious, Holly. No disrespect intended. When people say the draft to me, I think the NFL draft. Okay, you say draft to me, and I think NFL draft, fantasy league draft. What draft are we talking about? Baseball. What are we doing?
Selective service.
All right, we have not talked about selective service, so let's talk about. That's a great conversation for us to talk about, Phil.
And to be fair, when I hear draft, I'm like, how deep does the water need to be for the boat? I mean, so confusing.
All right.
Fortunately, sometimes the answer is just like 3.5 feet.
Hold on, I'm bringing up the article you sent over. Where'd you send it?
It's in our chat.
I don't see it in our chat. I'm looking in our chat.
It's up a bit.
Oh, is it? It's not something she just sent?
No. There was a fair bit of grab ass that came after it.
Fair bit of grab ass. Lori, would you send it again? Yeah. All right. We're going to talk about that because I want to cite this story, but I was reading about it earlier today that there's been. I'm gonna sum it up, and then we'll get to the story. That there's been a proposal put forward for women to be entered into the selective service. The selective service, for those of you who don't know that at home, Paul, are those who are eligible to be drafted if a draft were to be instituted. Right?
Yes.
Am I right so far? Okay. You
Yes.
guys want to say anything? Jesus Christ.
Anything.
Okay.
Well, you're being a little bit weird about entering with this story, brother. So you're doing good.
Okay, so here's the question, and we'll get to the story when it comes up. Does anybody have an issue with women being eligible for the draft?
Yes.
Paul
Yes.
does? Okay, hold on. I'm just asking yes or no questions. Well, I want to establish camps first, and then we'll have the discussion. So Paul's against it. Phil, for or against?
Personally, I think it would be wrong. But in our current climate, I'm like, bring on the equality. Let's see how they feel
So
about
you're
that.
for.
I'm personally against it.
Okay, you're against. So
But
you're
I'm
on the same-
politically for.
You and
It's a
Paul are
weird-
sitting on the same fence post. Okay. Tom, for or against?
I'm against.
You're against. Okay. Lori, for or against?
Torn.
Okay.
Torn.
You are such a politician. I'm glad you're running for. Michelle Calder's seat.
Really torn.
What are you 51% of? For or against?
I'm 50-50 on this.
Oh my God! What? Oh,
Okay, I'll say against.
You're against. Okay, so
being in
everybody
selective service.
in studio is against, but me.
But you. Okay.
But me.
I was going to say, what about you?
No, I'm fine with it.
Why?
Because we live in a society where we have expected that all rights are equal to everyone. We have women on subs.
Yep.
We have women on surface ships.
Yep.
We have women in trenches. We have women in fighter pilots. Women have proven the ability to do almost anything a man can do, with the exception of some strength dexterity stuff. I'm not trying to get into that argument.
And that's
and do it better. They did studies that the DoD did studies on who is a better pilot.
Right.
Female pilots scored better. Now it's subjective, so it's not a sport. Female pilots scored better than male pilots did.
Yeah, so women have better eye-hand
Yes.
coordination
Yeah.
and better visual acuity
Exactly.
than men. However, if you're drafted into the military, they're not putting you in the cockpit of something.
No,
They're
what
giving
I'm
you a
saying
rifle, and they're going to say,
well,
"Go get." in
they're
that
going to put you
trench."
somewhere where they need you.
Right.
My point is that women have shown they have the ability to do most jobs that men can do. Again, strength and dexterity
So
notwithstanding.
that's where my problem is, right? With the draft specifically,
Mhm.
they're mostly drafting for infantry, right?
Paul?
Oh no.
No.
Yeah.
So
It's
the problem
they
I have
they
is
put them wherever they need to go, Tom.
Right.
Just
but the
so
problem
you
I have is, a 110-pound woman carrying what 60, 70
Careful,
pounds.
now you're
worth
body
of,
shaming. God damn it.
110-pound woman carrying 60 or 70 pounds of gear is not going to carry me out of a trench if I get hurt, because I'm 190 pounds and also carrying 60 or 70 pounds of gear. She's not lifting that. She's not hauling me to safety if I get shot. It's not happening.
But what did Paul just say? They put them where they need to put them.
I
So they may not be frontline. They may be in support.
Right,
They
but
may be in medical. They may
but
be
we
there's
already
a number
have
of places.
But we already have a mechanism for women to get involved, and we've had it since World War II.
But it wouldn't be
it
wouldn't be involuntary.
Yeah, right. It's still
Understood.
and I listen. If everybody wants equality, is it fair to tell young men you can be drafted and sent to war against your will, but ladies, we got to protect you?
It's not that we've got to protect you. It's that in a war, in a combat zone, a woman is not going to perform the same way a man is. And not only that,
But you're sticking specifically to the battle moniker. I'm
Yes,
talking about the
because
entire structure of the military, supply, medical, transport, everything.
But all of that stuff is already covered. We're not, the draft specifically is because we're at war. We're in a bad spot.
Mhm.
We need more troops. That needs to be battle ready men. Period.
You don't think women can be battle ready?
I putting women on the battlefield, one, goes back to the problem of a woman is not going to save a 110-pound woman is not going to carry out a 200-pound man. It's
Okay.
not going to happen. So life-saving is one thing. Two, men will not abandon a woman if she's stuck somewhere, right? They'll abandon the dude, say, "Okay, sorry, man, we'll try to get you
It
out
needs
later."
the many where they need the
Right?
few, yeah.
Yeah, we'll try to get you out later. But men won't do that with a woman.
It's
Paul,
hard
what do
to
you-
change.
It's a
people.
psychological impact and it's a safety impact.
Paul, what do
And
you think?
I just don't.
Well, I think Tom actually, in my opinion, just kind of hit the nail on the head in this sense. The reason I'm against it is because men are not psychologically in a place culturally where they do well with women on the battlefield and in trenches with them. And effectively, that comes down to the psychological and emotional component. A man's instinct is to protect a woman, whether women want to admit that or not. It is. And so they've done a lot of experimenting. Listen, years ago when I was in the Army and I was a tank commander, the issue came up about women on tanks. Okay. And they now are, and the Army's made commercials about them. Here's the problem. Women do not have to meet the same physical standards as men. Okay. A tank round, and the only reason I talk about tanks is because I'm obviously very familiar with them, right?
You had a lot of time with these.
Right. A lot of time. So I'm sorry, I'm hearing myself back through the, like I'm hearing an extra feed. It's probably on my phone somewhere. Anyway, point is that an armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, depleted uranium round weighs 90 to 90, not about 90, 95 pounds. Okay? And you have to load that in under 4 seconds over and over and over again. There are some women that can meet those physical standards, but they're not tested to the same standards as men. Women are tested to the physical standards of women. So you instantly have an issue where men are not going to have the faith in a woman because she doesn't have to meet the same standards as a man. That's an automatic issue right off the bat. Follow me?
Yes.
Okay. So that's an issue. Okay. There's the issue that I hate to say it. I know this is totally wrong. Women and men are not the same.
Correct.
They just aren't. There are physical differences. There are differences in hygiene. There are a lot of differences between men and women that makes it not advantageous to take women and put them in the exact same fields with men. Now, having said that, women have served on every battlefield or in every war for the United States since the Revolutionary War, at least. And they have performed admirably, and they can. But to I think the point that Tom made earlier, if you want to make women eligible for selective service, that should come with a caveat, right? If a woman gets drafted, she should be going to this field, or this field. Do not put them into combat arms. But then here's the problem: there are already some women in combat arms.
Yep.
Right.
Because they chose to. Right. And so they chose to push themselves longer, harder, and faster so that they could compete at the same level as men. You start drafting women, you're not going to have that. No. You're going to have women who don't want to be there, who are not physically ready by any stretch of the imagination. So rather than taking women and drafting them and putting them into combat arms, if you're going to draft them and put them into support roles, logistics, medical, all that other stuff. Right? So if you want to differentiate in that sense, I would be okay with it. But that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about a draft and putting them wherever they're needed. So as long as that's the case, no, I'm against it. And like I said, I go back to the overwhelming fact that men are not psychologically or emotionally prepared to be serving next to random women in some sort of weird 50-50 mix or something. It's just men are not ready. Men can't handle that.
Totally agree with you, Paul. Totally. Men are going to protect the women, and they're going to lose their edge on the field, and on the battlefield, that's where they get killed.
Lose their edge. Great point. Yep. There you go, Lori. Lose their edge.
Holly's question, because she said the draft. So she was talking about the bill that was passed on Friday that automatically registers males for the vote. But again, she just said you're going to talk about for the draft. She just said you guys can talk about the draft. I thought she was talking about the Senate proposal that was released out last week that proposed that women would be required to register for the draft. So again, that's what we're talking about. We'll talk about the males being automatically registered. Yeah. I think that's a good comment.
I love it.
We'll have that conversation in a minute. But
yeah,
I want to stay in this woman thing just for a sec. Phil, I know you had a comment.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, to extend what we were saying, again, politically be equal, great, but I really think it's a bad idea. The folks, the men and women that would be drafted, are to be brought in quickly into the service of what the military needs. They're not the career, they're not the people who have prepared for this. So it's just a bad combination.
Yeah, I'm going to stand on this ledge all by myself. My expectation would be, now this may be flawed because we are talking about the government, by the way. My expectation would be is that those that are drafted are then placed in a place where they can be of most benefit. Right? So if you draft a 110-pound woman, are you going to arm her up with armor and give her a machine gun and tell her to go out to the field? Probably not. But are you going to assign her to a station somewhere where she can assist with
peeling potatoes?
Well, not even that. I'm not trying to relegate her to the kitchen, Phil. But I mean, but there are supply positions where logistics, where you've got to get stuff from A to B. I mean, when you're in a war, if you're drafting for a war, the war is bigger than just the front. The war is everything that happens behind that to support that. So
absolutely, Kevin, to your point, it is a very well-known military fact that the infantryman might win you a battle or a skirmish, but logistics wins a war. An army moves on its stomach.
Yep.
So the logistics is 1,000% just as important as a man in the trench.
And that's why I don't have an issue with women getting drafted, with the hope that they would be placed in opportunities where they're best suited to serve. Now, you're going to find some women that are yoked up, that are gung-ho crazy, that you're going to be like, we got to give her a gun and a helmet because she's got the mentality for us to send to the front, you're going to find that. Okay. You're also going to find men. You're also going to find men that you say, this guy doesn't have the mental fortitude to go to the front, but we need to use him somewhere. We'll put him in supply. We'll put him in logistics. We'll put him in chow, something. Everybody has a role to serve. And if we're going to argue that we're a totally equal society, we better be a totally equal society then.
So, well, let me give you a little bit of information, okay?
Yes, sir.
There was a 2015 study conducted by the United States Marine Corps, okay? Because what they found was, according to the Selective Service says that they are capable right now of drafting women based on its existing infrastructure. But if they are given the mission and modest, quote, additional resources by Congress, there are still issues. There are still problems. And that gets to the study conducted in 2015. Okay. And I know that this will, I mean, maybe it won't. I would be interested for Holly to put in there if this bothers her, because this is a study conducted in 2015. Conducted by the Marine Corps, that an all-ground male combat team outperformed their mixed gender counterparts in every single capacity during their infantry integration tests. In June, the Marine Corps paid the University of Pittsburgh $2 million to study the sociological and physical training effects of increased gender integration in recruit trade. The result of that studies are not yet available. And again, that just happened here within the last couple of weeks. So we'll see.
Yeah. Holly, a couple of comments. Holly said, acting like every man in the military now is capable of being on the front lines or of humping a wounded soldier to safety is crazy disingenuous, which is not what I said, Holly. I believe what I said, if you were paying attention and taking notes, so we'll be a quiz later. I said that my hope would be is that anybody drafted would be put in a place where they can best serve. So if there's a man that shouldn't be on the front lines, he shouldn't be on the front lines.
Well, that is why we train to standard. Okay, let's be honest here. If you are training to standard, yeah, every man that's serving can do those physical tasks. That is part of your training. So I can appreciate where she's coming from, but it's not correct. If you are trained and you are trained to standard and your test scores are where they are supposed to be, you are capable of doing those jobs, period. Everybody's a basic infantryman.
Phil?
I was going to say, too, I mean, last time we had draft, we're talking like Vietnam and
Vietnam.
You know, and I'm not familiar with the logistics. Like, were there a shortage of the jobs you mentioned that you might think would be appropriate for women drafted? You know, was there a shortage of that? Was like, no, we have no problem. People get to do that job. You know, what do we know? I mean, that's been like over 50 years.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have an answer for that, but I will say that in any military operation, you're going to have to expand all the support that goes with that.
Oh yeah.
Supply, logistics, food,
everything to support. I mean, that's the importance of the sea lift, the merchant marines. I mean, all of this is important.
So I would believe that if you're going to add, 250,000 soldiers to a theater, that in addition to that 250,000 soldiers in a theater, you're going to have another 100,000 of support to do the important stuff that goes on in the background to keep that unit running and moving. And so
and another question, as we seek the totally equal society, will we see like they found in like the Scandinavian countries, where as they seek the more egalitarian equality, and then the differences actually start to become more prominent? You know, they eliminated all the differences in the society, but then the differences make themselves known. It's counterintuitive.
So what you're saying is traditional gender roles just show up as those societies become
that's
more
what
egalitarian.
I'm understanding they're saying from these studies.
That's the stuff I've read too.
Yeah.
And let me say this, by the way, you really want to see a country less likely to want to go to war?
Have trade?
The premise of drafting your daughters to war, that in itself, I think, will make war far less likely.
Especially the senator's daughters, right?
Well, yeah, Holly made that comment. Listen, Holly's got a really good point, though.
Yeah.
There was a lot of rich people and political people whose kids didn't get drafted because they didn't want them to go. Like, that whole ish has to stop. I mean, if you're going to have a draft, it better be universal and it better be equally fair to everybody, regardless of your of your position, your paycheck, your
That-
power level.
That has never been, nor will it ever be.
Well, maybe.
Yes, Tom is right. You
Maybe,
are always
but
going to have even right now, how many people may have gotten drafted and didn't, for example, because they were in college? Or and again, there were always ways. The leftist favorite way to avoid getting drafted was to take a vacation to Canada for 40 years. So, and I want to draw this point. For every M1 Abrams tank crew, there are approximately 15 support people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing to remember, right? So you have your tank crew. There's 4 members on that crew.
Paul, let me interrupt you. When you say
Yep.
a support crew or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
what do they do? So you have your tank team, which are actually in the tank, but what are the support team? What do they do?
Fuel trucks, crew, mechanics to perform servicing tasks that the crew is not able. The crew is only trained to a certain point. You have crew level duties. You have headquarters staff, command and control, all the way to cooks, other additional support staff, drivers who are delivering not only fuel but ammunition, medics. So when you break it all down for every one crew, so a company, okay, is 4 platoons. Each platoon has 4 tanks. Okay, so that's 16 tanks with 4 people per tank. So of those 16 tanks, you have about 15 support personnel for that company of M1 tanks per tank.
Okay.
So do the multiplication, add it up, and that's how many people you have in that company in roles of cooks, paper pushers, rear echelon mother. You've got truck drivers, mechanics, different types of mechanics. You got turret mechanics, hull mechanics. You have engine mechanics. I mean, and the list goes on and on and on. And every single one of them is absolutely as important as the crew in that tank, because without any part of that, you lose your tank's combat effectiveness.
And I hate to tell you this, but in Iraq, there are a lot of women that served in those support roles that found themselves smack dab in the middle of combat.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So,
absolutely.
So let's not pretend like women aren't already out there doing it, because they certainly are.
But they chose to.
Yes, but if we're going to tell men, young men, you don't have a right. You don't have a right to say if you're going to defend this country or not. You're going to go. Sorry. Listen, hold on. We'll go to break. Hold on. Outlaw Radio. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll continue this around the backside. Back after this on the Mega Talk Radio Network. Outlaw Radio. All right, Holly. Holly said, "No," and I'm gonna answer this realistically. She said, maybe if the men can't handle it, we need to start excluding them, since they're the ones with the issues. All female subs, for example. So
I would have no problem with an all-female crew in the Navy. I would have no problem with that at all. Just like female helicopter pilots, female fighter pilots, they all perform well and to standard.
I guess that means that Holly was totally okay with the segregated units in the Civil War. We'll just put all the black people in one unit. They can't serve intermixed with white soldiers. We need to separate them out. That's ridiculous.
Well, it is amazing, Kevin. Can you acknowledge how, people fought for so long for integration, equal rights on many different levels, women's suffrage, the civil rights movement, all that stuff. And now in today's world, we have a hard push by the far left to do what? Resegregate.
Segregate everything.
Well, and
Unbelievable.
Here's the problem, right? And Paul, you can speak to this. We both served, right? Leadership comes from experience, comes from time, comes from knowledge and history. Unfortunately, at this point in the military, there's not a lot of women that have that time and leadership and experience to be able to lead others. There's some. There's not nearly enough.
Well,
you can't.
Politely, I disagree. There are a lot of women with the experience now. We've been at war for 20 years, dude.
There's never been
24 years.
There's never been a female sub commander.
I can't speak to, dude, because I don't really know anything about the Navy.
Hold on. We're coming back on AM.
Mhm.
Well, of course you don't. It's the better service. Why would you want to raise your bar?
You keep telling
Outlaw
yourself
Radio.
that.
Stay tuned.
I'm Brandy Cruz, host of the Undivided Podcast, and you're listening to Outlaw Radio. Good luck.
Outlaw Radio. Paul's gone. What happened to Paul? During the break, we were talking about this, and I just want to give you an example. In 2022, Amber Cowan became the first woman to serve as an executive officer on a sub, the XO. Okay. So the Navy has never, that's not a commanding officer, that's an executive officer. That's important. It's a big deal. But I shudder at the idea if you just started sending out women's only units, women's only subs, they'd get killed.
Or everybody be running scared for 1 week out of the month.
Because they don't have the experience, they don't have the leadership. That all takes time to develop, to learn strategy and to learn the intricacies of the whole thing. Remember, George Washington screwed the pooch on his first leadership assignment.
He did, without a doubt.
When he was working for the British in Canada.
He royally screwed
the pooch. So it doesn't just happen. Secondly, I don't like the idea of segregating units at all. I just don't. I think we're a much stronger, better military if we're able to pull on the experiences and the skills of everybody who is in that unit. But what do I know? Paul?
Like I said, I can't speak much to that. I can't tell you why the Navy has fallen behind the Army, for example, with regards to promoting women to certain positions within the command and control structure. The Army's been doing it for many, many years. But I disagree with the Army's integration of women into what are called combat arms units. That's armor, infantry, and artillery. I don't like it. I don't, like I said, I was as clear as I could be, right? I mean, again, I know tanks. So let me.
What are you saying?
No. Listen. If you're a tank crew, okay, and let's take Desert Storm. Before we crossed that line and went in and combat started, do you know how long those crews of 4 sat in those tanks together? 4.5 months. 4.5 months sitting in a 10-foot by 10-foot square area with 4 people. Now you tell me how plausible that sounds when you put men and women in those armor boxes for 4.5 months. Are there some that can handle it? Yes, there absolutely are. I have no doubt there are some that can handle it.
Yeah.
But my bet is that when you start mixing 4 completely different personalities, at least when there are 4 men in that, or you know what, put 4 women on a tank. I wouldn't have a problem with that, but I don't think physically they'd be able to keep up with the demands. Because instantly, if you have a woman on a tank, and I know this from having talked to tank crew members, they get a woman on the tank and they instantly, every one of them feels she can't uphold her end of the bargain physically. And that comes as something that becomes relevant when you do things like lose a track in combat. Nobody has a problem, or nobody thinks that a woman can't identify a target, lays to the target, and pull the trigger. Of course she can. I have no doubt about that myself. But a tank is a tracked vehicle, and every track pad weighs 80 pounds. That means to replace one link, it's 160 pounds. That's just the one link. Now think about the entire track pad and how big it is, having to use tanker bars and everything else to try to put that all back together while being shot at. This is why the physical the physical issues that soldiers have to train to is so incredibly important. And when women do not meet the same standards because they don't have to, they are not graded to the same standards, right? So in a PT test, your physical test, now I don't know what the numbers are sitting at right now, so I'm just making this up off the top of my head to prove the point. Whereas a man, you had to run 2 miles in under 16 minutes, okay? Women had 22 minutes. A man had to do 65 sit-ups in under 2 minutes, okay? Women had 4 minutes.
The PT standards were certainly different, yeah.
They were very different, right? So, and that's a freaking real thing. You've got to have the confidence in your crew member sitting in the loader seat, the gunner seat, or the driver's seat. You got to have the confidence. Mentally, women are absolutely as good as men, if not in some instances considerably better. This is all about the physical issues that are placed on those soldiers. I don't really have much else to say about it. So,
yeah. Phil?
And it occurs to me too, we're dealing with how would a woman operate in, not that there's an alternative, but the man's tank. If women crews became a thing, would they design equipment around their skills and abilities to be successful? It's a question I don't know the answer to, but
it's a fair question, but I would tell you that probably would never happen. Just because the idea of you want to train everybody to a single set of standards because every tank they go into is exactly alike. We called it switchology, right? You got all these knobs and switches all over around you, but your face is stuck into a viewing scope, okay? So you got to be able to reach up and know by memory what every switch is at without looking at it. Plus it's pitch dark in there. So, those are important. It's a perfectly valid question, but yeah. So.
Yeah. Listen, and again, keep in mind, I'm not advocating that we send women by hook or by crook into combat situations. My hope would
sounds
be
like it.
No. My hope, as I said 3 different times, Paul. Pay attention. You and Holly should take notes together. You guys can do study hall.
I can't. She would kill me in a closed room.
I believe that they need to be
She'd
evaluated.
Find a pencil to stab me with.
Placed in a place, and same with men, placed where their skills and talents are best able to be used. So if you're a 120-pound woman and you aren't going to be able to lift those tracks, then don't send her to a tank unit. What are her skills? What's her training? What does she know? What is she good at? What can she do? What does the ASVAB say? All of that stuff. And then utilize those talents and skills in the way that best serves the military. Phil?
Occurs to me too. I'm just kind of scanning through. I think Holly does bring up some good points. Like one of them, at the end, she says punishing women because men can't be trusted, or
it is such a twisted logic, right? Punishing women. Nobody's punishing women because men can't be trusted. I'm sorry, I don't think that was any part of the conversation.
Being drafted as a woman should be punishment enough. But
hold on. In full disclosure, what she said was she was talking about women's ability to advance in the military.
Oh yeah,
and to grow their career, and that in that respect, you're punishing them because men can't be trusted because of the rate of sexual assault in the military and all that is very high. I just want to be clear what she's saying.
What is the rate of sexual assault in the military?
Exceptionally high, Paul.
I heard that. I'm just asking what it is because I don't know. I don't have any clue.
You guys,
it doesn't surprise me that it's exceptionally high.
I think it's
right?
either 66% or almost as high as 75% of women.
Yeah. And that is absolutely effing disgusting. And I hope that it is dealt with in the military today in the harshest way possible. The absolute harshest way possible.
To that point, it brings up what I was going to kind of allude to was, do you have to then have standards that's not only about physical ability to do this job, but also how you're going to interact with your peers, men and women. And men shouldn't be pigs, but a lot of them are. So do you then start filtering those off? Oh, you're not available to be in the military. It's only the ones that are going to treat women properly. Is that going to be what we need in the event of a war that we're drafting? Because it comes back to the draft.
Yeah, it goes back to the draft. I mean, there's already psych evals in the military. I mean, I remember, my folks joking about the ones my dad had to go through, just because his job in the military was very high stress. And anyways, when it comes to the draft, that's when the rules get loosened, man. Because I mean, if there's a draft, there's an emergency. There's a problem.
True, Tom. Yeah, that's a good point.
So, I mean, the rules get loosened a lot. Look at Russia right now. I mean, Putin, how many felons has Putin let out to go fight?
Well, let's be honest. The men that are going to sexually assault women are not going to walk into MEPS when they do their intake and say, "Hey, by the way, I plan on raping some chicks while I'm here." They're not going to say that. Most sexual predators are relatively intelligent and don't present as psychopaths. So identifying them in the process is really hard, right? So it comes down to your frontline officers. It comes down to the people that see the interactions on the daily basis. It comes down to the military taking these things seriously, which they have in the past. Listen, in 2022, there were nearly 9,000 reports of sexual assault across the 4 major branches. 9,000 on servicemen. And of those, 89% of women that were assaulted by fellow members of the military. Okay. So those are the numbers that DOD has released. Now, I will tell you that I suspect the number is probably 3 times that, because of the number of women that won't come forward or won't make the accusation because of fear of pushback and blowback and issues that change chain of command and how it's going to impact their ability to serve and their career and shame and embarrassment and all of that, right? I will tell you that for a long time in my day job, I served on a team that processed those claims specifically. Claims of service members, both men and women, who were the victims of what's called military sexual assault or military sexual trauma. The number of claims that came through our office that we saw was mind-boggling. Now, I don't work on that team anymore. It's been centralized to a different office. It's all going to one office now instead of being piecemarked or around the country. But even today, I still come across them in bits and pieces, and I have to refer them. So that the MST angle within the military is a huge deal. We can't ignore that. But we also cannot not equip our military forces with the ability to be prepared and trained and armed and ready and fully staffed for the fear that may happen. Because if we don't have a full function military, we're hosed. The minute Russia or China or North Korea or Iran thinks our military is fractured, that's when they'll pick the fight with us. So we have to maintain, like always, we have to be ever vigilant and always ready to go. And I don't know how you balance the two of those. I think the military has to really take sexual assault claims way more seriously.
They absolutely do. And like I said, man, you know, people should pay the harshest penalties for any of that. But I don't think that we can escape the correlation between sex and violence either. So I you know, it clearly doesn't justify it by any stretch, but the correlation is well defined and well known over the years, right? Now, why that is, I couldn't tell you, man. I'm not a psychiatrist. I can tell you that violence and war in no way impacts my sex drive, but for a lot of people, it weirdly does. Mm-hmm. Look at how the Russians are performing in Ukraine, regularly and routinely raping Ukrainian women, with Russian women being caught on tape telling their boyfriends and husbands to do it. Like, what? You know, This is all very real stuff, man. And again, the correlation does not equate to causation. Like, one doesn't justify the other, but it's still there. And what that means, I don't know. I don't even want to pretend to know, because I am not. That's way out of my pay grade, man.
Well, it goes back to, you know, that human nature stuff that we've talked about.
Oh, for sure.
Nature to, yes, you know, feed, fight, and you know the other F.
Yeah. No, Tom, you're correct. I don't disagree.
You know, and what the hallmark of civilization is being able to, you know, behave yourself as a species in a group and you know, follow the rules of the road, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Really quickly, I want to respond, and then I'll get Phil's. Holly said, when women report, they get kicked out because they're labeled as unfit for duty if they need counseling services. When they're identified, the military's response is abysmal. They kick the women victims out and retain the male perps. So
I have nothing to back that up on. Is that true, Kevin? Does that really happen? Because it sucks if it does.
Let me tell you what I know. When I was in the military in the late 80s and early 90s, it was very true. The response to those types of claims, just being a sailor and hearing about things was known. Okay. I can't speak about how the military handles it now because I'm not in the military. I will tell you that in my position with my agency and the amount of documentation and files we have access to from DOD and all of that, at least since I've been with the agency since 2019, I would say it's the opposite. The military, the DOD and the branches really got kicked hard by Congress when these sexual assault numbers started coming in, and basically got ordered to fix the reporting system and start to deal with it. Now, are they doing it adequately enough? I don't know. I'll tell you that at my agency, we're handling it really. It's a main point of concern. It's something we have dedicated teams specialized to work on because it's part and parcel to our mission. I don't know about the military. I've read a lot of those files. I've never come across anybody that got kicked out because they reported it. There are some challenges that arise when you're the victim of a sexual assault about whether mentally you're able to remain in service. And it's not about counseling. It's about how much trauma that did on you. And can you remain in that environment? Are you comfortable in that environment? Are you comfortable being around other male soldiers or sailors in tight quarters? So there's a lot of angles to that I don't know the answers to, but I've never come across a situation where I thought somebody was booted because they filed. And the way that the military is handling those now, I would think is way different. Well, it's way different than when I was in, but I don't know when that started. I don't know. Phil, you were going to say something.
I was just thinking, like Tom might give me is it paleontology? The whole history of people, like, if you got a warring people attacking another one, the whole, frankly, raping the people you're attacking women. And
no, that's more like, cultural anthropology.
Oh, I mean, we're seeing that. I mean, it's in the stories of what happened with the whole, people taken hostage in the whole Gaza thing. There was it's one thing to take them hostage. It's another thing to be like brutalizing them. Like, what's going on? Or you're talking about this, the Russia-Ukraine thing, or, look at history. Well, why would they do this? Is it a reason to
because
surprise, you're pregnant with the enemy's
right. Things like
now.
The Geneva Convention, as far as human history goes, things like the Geneva Convention are reasonably new, because otherwise prisoners of war have always been, brutalized and enslaved, and it's just the disgusting human way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's an observation. This happens.
All right. Before we wrap this, I want to segue into the mandatory registration for males for the draft. So again, what has happened is that the House of Representatives on last Friday, passed a measure that automatically would require men to be registered between 18 and 26 for selective service. The bill was part of the National Defense Authorization Act. And again, it's going to require them to be automatically registered. So currently you've got to register. You've actually got to go, at least when I turned 18, I went to the post office and had to register.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
Is that that's still the rule now? I don't know.
As far as I know.
As far as I know.
I mean, frankly, I think I registered. It's not like there's a way to check that I know of.
Yeah, I don't know. I know.
Yeah, you can go on their website. You can go onto their website.
Yeah. So the mandatory, I guess there's two rubs to this, right, Paul? There's the look, you're supposed to register anyway. That's the law. We should register you. There's also concerns about privacy and other stuff that comes from the government having access to a whole bunch of stuff that they shouldn't have. Laura, you had a comment?
Yeah, I have 4 adult male children.
Mm-hmm.
And
are any of them in the 18 to 26 age range?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And the youngest is still in that range, and he forgot. Even after multiple times of being told to do it. And so the government actually contacted him via letter and said, hey, got to get this done. So he did it. But yeah, they will track you down if you forget.
Paul, do you have an issue with the automatic registration?
None whatsoever. I actually would love at some point for some politicians to have the conversation about mandatory civil service in one form or another. And I think that there are a lot of ways that we can do that. Yeah, I personally would be able to get behind that. And not because of any reason other than I think it will give for some youth in this country, it will give them a sense of pride, a sense of belonging, maybe increase a little bit of their patriotism in one way or another. You know, I think that a lot of good can come from it, a lot of projects and jobs. You know, we used to remember the civilian conservation course, right? We used to have projects like a lot of our state and national parks, the trails and everything got built by those organizations. There are things that can be done. And even you know, compulsory, you know, gosh, I don't know, farmers, right? They could go out and work the fields. They could go out and work as teachers' assistants. Like there's all kinds of things that could be done if we had compulsory service, and not for a long time. I'm talking like a year or 2 years is all.
Yeah.
It don't have to be a long period of time.
Yeah, I know that Israel's had a lot of success with it. You know, they have compulsory service. I don't have an issue with it necessarily.
And I'm not saying to do it, by the way. I'm saying it should be a conversation. Yeah. Like let's have the conversation on a political level and see what people think. That's my thought.
Holly said it's not going to happen. Gen Z is already discussing plans to revolt if there's an automatic draft.
Well, does that surprise anybody?
Will they bring guns?
Probably not. They don't believe in them.
What? Yeah. To what end?
Right.
And like I just checked. Apparently, I did register, and apparently they haven't updated my address in like 10 address changes.
I'll say this. I think the level of support for a draft will depend upon what brings us the need for the draft. You know, if we get snuck attack like Pearl Harbor again, I don't think a lot of people are going to throw a fit about a draft.
According to Holly, Gen Z will.
Well, but I don't think so. I think if we're under attack, I think if we are,
I think
the victim of aggression of another nation that does not appear as though we instigated that.
I think
now again, I know there's a lot of
I think about 30% of Gen Z will show up.
If we know history, let's just hope nobody messes with our boats.
Yeah,
because the Navy is the badasses. Anyway, I
don't F with America's boats.
I think it's going to be perception, right? I think it's going to be perception. Vietnam did not have that perception. Vietnam was perceived as us going to somebody else's place to start a fight. We didn't really need to be there.
We did go to somebody else's house and start a fight.
So we didn't.
But that's what I'm saying, though. I think it's all going to come down to perception. If we do a draft to send people to Ukraine, that's going to go over like a fart in church.
Yep. Just imagine Gen Z or Gen Alpha, the next Tonkin, what was it? The Tonkin Gulf Yacht Club kind of stuff going on. It's just
Tonkin Gulf Yacht Club. I like that phrase.
Never heard that?
No.
Yeah, the Turner Joy downtown Bremerton, charter member.
Yes.
Of the Tonkin Gulf.
Yeah. Did you hear what
the only member, I think, yeah.
Do you hear what may be being relocated to the city of Bremerton?
Tell me it's
the USS Missouri.
Are we going to get them? Oh, dang.
That sucks. That's too bad. I was right there with you, Phil.
Nope. The USS Bremerton, the submarine. They're talking.
Oh yeah. People will jump up and freaking down for joy on that.
Well, and I can see
one
it.
Piece?
Yeah, it's still. Yeah, I could see them docking it right next to the Turner Joy and giving tours.
It might be fun. I'm just going to figure out how we're going to get our ham radio club on there.
Good luck.
We got our Turner Joy radio club. I mean, years ago, when we had the Mo here, we remember celebrating. They opened up the call sign WW2END. True story.
WW2END. All right.
That was the beginning of the WW number call sign option.
Let me go back to this conversation. So I don't have any issue with the automatic draft. If the draft is selective service registration, I don't have an issue with it under the laws as the way as the way the rules are now, right? If it's mandatory to register when you turn 18, then just freaking register. Now, if we need to make a change of that, then that's a whole different legislative thing. But if the law is the law, let's just take it out of their hands and make it easy to comply. Look, the last time we had a draft was the early 1970s.
Now, will there be abuses of this? Like we got the motor voter and all that kind of stuff. Is there going to be abuses of this system?
Oh, sure there will be. Sure there will be.
The government will.
Well, no, hold on. Abuses more than now? Probably not. No, what I mean is they're already expected to register. So the information that's going to be on file there's not going to be new information on file. We're probably going to be using Social Security databases to determine who's still alive and who's now reached 18.
That's what you got to enter in there.
So it's going to be stuff that's already of record, stuff the government already has in their databases, and register them. Take the issue off of their backs. Just register them. Now, I haven't looked at the chat. I'll look at the chat in a second. I'm sure Holly's not a big fan of it, and I understand why. Right? The idea of drafting is very icky. And it should only be used in really appropriate times, right? But there are times it's necessary. Vietnam? Probably not. Korea? Probably not. World War II? Certainly.
Someone said something about boats and subs. And aren't those the same thing?
Boats and subs?
Yeah.
No. I mean, a sub is a kind of boat, but usually boats are surface level. Subs are
That's what they call those ships.
Oh, what a smart ass.
No, subs.
Touche, Phil. Touche.
Germany, they were U-boats. I mean, the German U-boats were subs. So a boat is essentially anything watercraft.
Yeah,
Ships
all the Navy guys I know, they're like, boats sink, ships float.
Ships are based on size. Phil's right. Okay, whatever, Rick. Holly said, y'all are really prepared to lose your sons and daughters for the sake of the oil wars of rich white men and war profiteers. So, Holly, you asked two separate questions.
That's another question.
Well,
entirely.
yeah, you asked two separate questions. The question is, do we need to be able to maintain a draft if we need to? We certainly do. World War II is a great example of that. Do I advocate us sending our men and women over to fight more fights in the desert over oil? Certainly not. But these are two separate questions, right? The question of the draft is one. The question of what are we using them, what are we drafting them in for is a whole different question. And so I think you can have both conversations.
Now, is she suggesting we bring back Keystone? So we don't have to do the foreign oil. I doubt it.
Look,
well, energy independence, Phil. You're right. Energy independence is a big deal, man. And the left has gone out of their way to eliminate our ability to be energy independent, right?
Holly said we don't seem to learn from history. Holly, let me tell you what history is.
I don't disagree with her. She's right about that. We don't.
History is that we've never used the draft to support oil wars.
That's correct.
So, I mean, be careful, telling me we haven't learned history when history says we've never used we just sent the troops we already had. So we've never used a draft for that purpose. Now, we did use a draft in Vietnam and Korea due to communism and our fear that communism was going to spread all over the region. A lot of good that did. And we used the draft in World War II and World War I. I mean, we never did it for oil wars. But whatever. Don't let history get in the way of your facts. Holly said Keystone was moving oil sands from Canada to the Gulf. Had nothing to do with U.S. oil. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know.
At least it's in our same continent.
That's a feeble argument, though.
That's all I got.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm also apparently derogatory and other mean words.
I don't know if we were buying oil off of that or getting. I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
We had American jobs. Making
American jobs for Phil. Yeah, 100% right there.
But they were temporary jobs, right? I mean, once the pipeline was constructed in there, it was going to require very little.
What jobs?
All construction jobs are temporary.
No, I know. Yeah. I don't know. I had some issues with Keystone. We'll talk about that at a different time. I had issues with Keystone and kind of some of the ways they went after some of the Native American property that was in the middle of it. But in general, I'm hard pressed to not want more oil independence in this hemisphere. So we can quit supporting the despots that hate us in those other countries that want to sell us oil and see us burn at the same time. But that's me.
They want our business and our death.
Yeah. Okay. AM, good night. We'll see you guys Wednesday. I won't be here Wednesday, by the way. Facebook, stay right there. We got a little bit longer with you after this on Outlaw Radio. Outlaw Radio.
Network.com.
Holly said we never advocate for American jobs in the environmental sector. Those efforts get poo-pooed. I don't think that's true.
Well, I was in the environmental sector for 6 years.
Well, and lately, hasn't the Biden administration, right or wrong, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but they've really put an emphasis on green jobs. And
I've seen a lot of stuff for solar. As a former electrician, I've seen a lot of ads for solar work.
Yeah,
and,
I'm a huge advocate for solar and wind power. Big time.
A lot of work or a lot of ads for wind generator, engineers and
yeah. Did you know, Tom, you could probably agree with this. Anybody who wants to generate or have a secondary power source for their home, for less than $2,000, you can build 2 windmills, put them on the roof of your house or in a place that will collect good wind, and those things will generate electricity 24/7 for you. Less than $2,000.
Give me the
how
details.
much energy will it give you?
There's a lot of geography.
Of course, Tom. Of course. Don't get me wrong.
There's a lot of geography rolled into that.
Fine.
You mean geology?
No, geography.
$2,000. How much power would I get?
Yeah, how much power would you get?
It depends. Well, we got to stop for a second so I can answer the question. Okay. The question is, it's not about how much power you will generate as much as it is about how much power will you be able to store. Okay, because while you're asleep at night, the wind don't stop blowing, but you're going to constantly be generating power. So I would recommend anybody that wants to do that, go drop the money and get a whole house battery. Tesla makes an excellent product for about $4,000, and you can literally run your entire house off of one battery that's 3 feet high by 2 feet wide by about 6 inches deep.
And how long does the battery life last? I mean, obviously, I'm sure.
I think that one's. I think it's around. I think that's around 20 years.
Yeah, typically 20 if they're lithium ions.
No, I mean on the charge.
It depends on how many kilowatt hours.
Right.
You're generating power the whole time while that windmill is up there blowing.
I'd love to see the numbers.
But what I'm asking, Paul, and again, you probably don't have the answer to this because I think it depends on how much draw you're pulling. But you have the Tesla battery at your house; it is fully charged.
Mm-hmm.
The power grid goes out. Okay? Mm-hmm. There's been a whatever those bombs in the atmosphere are called, and
an EMP,
nice CMA,
yeah. And so now
or a CMA,
there is no grid. Sorry. How long would that battery last to power your stuff? Theoretically, I mean,
the battery would last you about 20 years.
The battery would power your house for 20 years?
Yes.
You're asking two different questions, or answering a question he didn't ask.
You're assuming that you've got a constant trickle of wind energy coming in, right? Because your windmill's constantly turning. So it's constantly generating power. So the power you're pulling off your battery is constantly being replenished.
Right. But is the windmill generating enough power to run the house?
Depends on how hard the wind's blowing.
Correct. And that's why I said I would recommend having 2. You can say people that have a creek or a stream that flows through their house, right? You can even create a power generating system where you drop this little, you like use a big PVC pipe, and you can put a prop of some types or a little like a water wheel. Like a water wheel that will generate power. There are ways for you to create secondary power sources for your house, and they have gotten to the point where they are not very expensive. In fact, one of the best ways that I have seen somebody do, he took old oh my God, what do you call them? Off of old Chevy cars, the alternators. And you can use those to hook those up. They will generate electricity.
Yep, use an old alternator, and then you make just 12-volt DC.
Mm-hmm.
You can run lights. You can charge your cell phone. You can pretty much do
Phil
everything.
Could probably
except resistance heat. You're not going to run.
Phil, you could probably do that in your sleep, huh?
All right, I don't know what to do with this conversation. Corey said you'd have to generate. You'd have to generate as much as you draw plus some.
Absolutely,
Generac. I have a Generac, but it runs on propane. Once the propane runs out, I'm out of propane. Phil, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, here's it. I mean, all the specifics aside, we think of solar as this green environmental thing. I would argue solar power independence is very American. Screw the oil companies. Let's make our own power. What's the American thing? A diesel running truck, roll coal, or American. How about driving a Leaf that you powered off renewables? Because screw the oil companies and the government taxes. I'm going to make my own electricity. That sounds American, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I
heard
an ironic thing.
I heard it. I don't remember who it was. Paul, you might have heard it too. I heard somebody say, imagine if the roles were reversed. If we were running off of batteries and somebody came and said, hey, I found this new way to power a vehicle. It just uses fuel. You get a longer range. It's not as expensive to manufacture or replace. People be lining up down the street for gas.
They were. That's old news. Early cars were electric.
Yep.
And then a wonderful internal combustion engine came along, and it's glorious.
Yeah.
Oh, great point, Phil. That's a really good point.
Then eventually they made V8s.
Yeah.
And even V12s.
Don't forget the 10. There were some 10s in there.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I will. You guys will appreciate this. So for the last 2 weeks, Katie had been driving this. She was a hybrid, right? And it was a Toyota Sequoia, right? And it was a
hybrid. Oh, damn.
Yeah, it's a hybrid, and so this is a 2024 hybrid Toyota Sequoia, and it had dual twin something or another engines. It's a 6-cylinder, right? The thing had more torque and more horsepower than the same vehicle with an 8-cylinder engine in it. We towed our horse trailer with it with 2 horses in it, like it wasn't even there. A 6-cylinder. It was insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, listen, I think the electric car market is just going to continue to get better and grow, and maybe eventually they'll be better than gas vehicles.
Well, it's being legislated. So again, government is picking winners and losers, right?
Well,
so
it's happening. That's unfortunate.
But that's why Reichert has to win.
Yeah, but the public across the country, the public's pushing back. I mean, EV sales are dropping. The infrastructure isn't there. What infrastructure is there? About 40% of it's not reliable.
That's a big problem. Yeah, and people don't even understand, and it's almost as divisive as the abortion issue. They don't even agree on what the issue is.
Right. That's a fair statement. I mean, as an EV driver, I'm telling you, the infrastructure that we have now is not reliable.
Here's the bigger issue for me. This is yet another example of the left screwing the poor and the minority.
Agreed.
Okay. Because I was able to go out and find my daughter for her first car. I picked up $1,000 2006 Volkswagen, need a little bit of work. My son's trained in it, fixed it up. Car runs just great. $1,000 car for a first car.
Absolutely. Yep.
You can't go out and get $1,000
EV.
EV.
Not with a $10,000 battery. You sure can't, huh?
No. And
it's kind of entirely true.
And
I looked at it. It was about 2,000. It was a neighborhood EV. It goes 35.
Yeah.
It's like the size of a Daihatsu.
Yeah, but you can't get a vehicle worth of crap.
I mean, and meanwhile, use Leaf for about 6.
And meanwhile, how often do you have to change the batteries in those things?
Well, anymore, the technology, battery the battery cells proper are not the issue. It's the modules surrounding them, the BMS, the battery management system, some of the ancillary things.
Yeah, mine's a 2013, and it still has the original battery in it.
And how many miles you got on it?
How many? Just over 90,000.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
you're telling the poor, of regardless demographic, you're telling the poor, you better go out and buy a new car.
You're already telling the poor a lot with now who's going to argue, as I attempt to argue, that making cars safer is a bad thing. Well, as they get safer,
they get more expensive.
So if our regulations didn't prevent us from importing the Chinese made SUV that's an EV SUV for like $5,000, but it would be like 1990
Have you been
standards.
giving him libertarian lessons again? Is that what you've been up to?
Oh, for Pete's sake.
No, he's just speaking some common sense.
I've been.
I'm teasing.
It's common sense.
Hold on,
He's-
listen.
it's
Phil, you're absolutely right about
there's no
regulations.
agenda there.
You're right about regulations. You're right. I was just using it as the overarching example of what the left, who screams we've got to do this, we got to do that, is doing to the poor.
Well,
gas prices have doubled since Joe Biden took office. And before any stupid moron in chat says, well, that's because of the war in Ukraine, check the cost of gas before the war in Ukraine started. It's not because of the war in Ukraine. It's because of increased gas taxes, both in the state and nationally, reduction of drilling areas. We look at the cost of inflation, what that's doing to the poor. Every single thing that the left is doing right now is to quote one of my favorite wrestlers,
yeah,
turning that sumbitch sideways and shoving it straight up their candy ass. It is the left that used to be the party of let's help the poor is now actively engaging in sticking it to the poor because they can't afford the EVs. They can't afford double the price of gas. They can't afford the inflation on their food. They can't afford all this stuff that the left wants to mandate.
And they can't afford rent.
And they can't afford rent, and they can't get a house, and they can't afford a down payment. They can't afford to buy a home.
That's all the special interest.
So we just have to make sure we give them what they need. They provide the subsidies, and what's
That means
doing?
taxes go up even more.
Oh, Holly says,
And then
how
we
does
have
it screw the poor? You are allowed to keep your gas-powered vehicles and also allowed to purchase them. The only goal is that Washington State won't have new gas-powered for sale by 2030. Stop the fear-mongering and definitely stop leveraging the poor. Holly, let me
Hold
give
on.
you a little bit of lesson about how economics work.
Can I just add to this before you get going on that tangent, Kevin? Electric vehicles are considerably more expensive. It's that simple.
And by the way, what does economics say? The minute you are no longer allowed to purchase a new gasoline-powered vehicle in the state of Washington, everybody who has a used gasoline-powered vehicle in the state of Washington will see the value of those vehicles skyrocket through the roof. The next thing that will happen is as the number of gas-powered vehicles are available goes down, so will the number of gas stations. That will reduce supply, which will increase demand, which will then make prices go even higher.
It will also take an entire demographic of citizens who are unskilled labor. It will give them that many fewer locations to get work.
Meanwhile, you will then increase the demand on electric vehicles, which we already have established that there's a shortage of because we're getting all of our chips from Taiwan.
And our infrastructure is not there. You can't
Well, hold on. And what's going to happen? You're going to have a greater demand on electric vehicles, but you're not going to be able to meet the supply, which is going to do what? Increase the price of electric vehicles. And then what's going to happen? The poor are not going to be able to afford to do any of that. And we've already doubled the cost of gas. When the demand cannot be met, it's going to raise it up even higher. And what are you going to tell these people?
And if
Take the bus.
No, you're going to tell them we need to increase your wages so you can earn $30 an hour on your minimum wage, and then everything else goes up accordingly. And it's a vicious cycle. It doesn't work. The idea of going to EVs is fine.
No, it's not.
Hold on. The idea of going to EVs as a personal choice is fine.
Personal choice.
The idea of mandating it, I'm not 100% opposed to. But the idea of mandating it now, when the system doesn't work, the economy doesn't work, the supply doesn't work, the cost doesn't work, the technology doesn't work, and nothing is caught up to it, that is idiocy.
Why would we mandate EVs? What's the motivation for doing that?
To better protect the environment.
To better protect the environment.
And to give PSC their kickbacks.
Politics.
To better protect the environment, then going EV is a load of crap.
Why?
Because you do just as much damage to the environment mining for lithium to make batteries.
Yes, sir.
As you do
100%.
for drilling
100%.
for petroleum.
Lithium,
not only that,
cobalt.
Yep. Not only that.
And hold on, what country does all that come from?
Russia.
Russia and China, just two countries that hate us. Another despot regime we're going to send all of our money to overseas. Brilliant.
And EVs, I would argue, EVs litter the environment pretty much as gasoline-powered cars in their rubber consumption. EV cars eat tires.
And the batteries don't go
Really?
away.
I did not know that.
Oh
Interesting.
my God. EVs eat tires.
And the batteries
especially
don't
the
go
Model
away.
X. The Model X.
the-
Now they're
yeah.
all recycled.
Is that? Hey, let me ask you, Phil.
They will
Phil, let me
recycle
ask you
those elements.
why. And Tom, why is that? Why do they eat? Is because there's so much more torque, or what?
Way more torque. Yeah,
Well, because they're
feel the-
heavier. You know how heavy
Yeah.
a Model X is?
Well,
No,
even
I've
my-
never
heavy
owned
car.
one.
even my little Leaf weighs a fair bit, but between the weight of the vehicle and then the amount of torque you get from an electric motor, it peels the rubber right off the tires.
Of course, I had the same problem with the gas car. So
Well, that's lead foot stuff there.
And
Holly said, "Great. So vote to institute a progressive income tax in Washington State and abolish the regressive taxes. Vote against efforts to repeal the capital gain tax. If you really care about the poor, then put your vote where your mouth is. But you won't. So again, leveraging the poor on specific issues is disingenuous." Holly, just because
Disingenuous, I think, is the word she was looking for there.
Yeah, just because I don't agree with every part of your agenda does not mean that I don't think that your agenda has some merit. So the idea that I have to agree with everything you say or nothing you say is part of the problem. You, my dear, are part of the problem. I don't think that putting in income tax is going to do anything to help the poor.
Nope. Deregulate everything.
Well, here we go with the libertarian argument again.
Yeah. Hey, the more crap you pile on someone's back, the more crap they have to pay for. Quit piling.
You are
things.
not going to convince me to deregulate everything. We saw what happened in the early 1900s when everything was deregulated. People were dying in the mines.
That was a different time.
It was a different time. But if you give corporations the ability to cut costs because they're not regulated, we're going to see more issues with our food, more issues with our consumer products, more issues in healthcare, more issues with innocent people dying.
No, you're
because
almost-
money is more important than people to those corporations.
You're almost going to the black and white thing that Holly gets stuck on, right? Just because I say deregulate doesn't mean I say, well, we're going to just quit driving on only the right side of the road. It's not stupid like that.
Okay. Give me an example of something you would deregulate. Let's put this in context. Just a solid, specific example.
God, we need to come up with a topic here. Otherwise, my brain just gets cars.
So if
let him answer. Sorry, Phil.
Cars.
Cars.
Perfect. All the safety regulations are out there.
Okay.
Dump them all.
Dump all the safety regulations.
All the safety regulations.
Clarify.
Just a second. It's on the consumer to do their homework and say, okay, this brand new car, to Phil's example earlier, this brand new car made in China is going to come home with me for $3,500, but it has no airbags. It's got basic seat belts. It doesn't have lane detection, no cruise control. It's got your simple crumple zone stuff.
Sure.
Okay, if that's what you can afford, cool. It's reliable. It gets you from point A to point B. Get insurance. You're going to pay higher rates for it, but that's what it is, and move on with your life. And if you can afford the fancy Audi or BMW or whatever with all the bells and whistles and the airbags and the
spinner wheels,
all those
side cameras,
things,
all that stuff.
Yeah, all the things. Great, good for you.
Okay, Phil.
I mean, here's real world actual example between states. Here, I don't actually know what it's going to cost me to build this addition I'm planning. I had it designed. There's a mother-daughter team. Mom's living in Montana now, so she does work out there. Daughter lives over here, so they're working in both places. I'm anticipating 20 to 30,000 needs to be paid to the government for the privilege to build an addition. They're going to have reasons, and people are going to rationalize it. But over in Montana, they explained to me there's pretty much no building code requirements, but people still get their houses planned. They still get them engineered. They want to insure those houses. They like to get loans on those houses.
Yes.
So there's still, it's not that the regulation goes away. It does, but it's not like people don't care.
The
They
government
just make decisions. So some people might decide, I think a mobile home is what I want.
That's
Great.
deregulation.
Park a mobile home. Boom, done.
That's it.
Okay.
Right there.
Here's the issue. If all things were equal in some utopian,
not.
Hold on, let me finish.
Okay, but they never will be though.
Okay,
but carry on.
I know. Let me finish. If all things were equal in some communist utopian paradise, then people would have equal access and equal opportunity to all the different options of vehicles using your example. So I can get the cheap one because I'm a cheap ass. I want to spend money on weed, or I can get the expensive one because it's got all the bells and whistles. It's not the society we live in. There's a lot of people that are counting pennies every single day and will look at it and go, I cannot afford to get the one with the seatbelts and the airbags, but I got to get Junior and Juniorette to school. So I'm going to have to get the cheap one. And then while they're driving the cheap one, they get sideswiped by a box truck and everybody dies because they didn't have seatbelts or airbags. It's not a matter of whether or not people are informed and want to make that decision. Some people have to make that decision.
Correct.
And so, yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I think in an ideal world where everybody's access and opportunity was the same, your way would work. But your way doesn't work when people cannot, when people are.
No, my way works in exactly what you were talking about. You just proved my point for me. Because if you can't afford to go and buy yourself, a new vehicle that, maybe doesn't have airbags, it's got, seat belts and the heater and turn signals and headlight, right?
Okay. A headlight.
Yes. You can get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Right. Great. It works. Right. It's as safe as it can be. Do you want that, or do you want to drive the 1975 Datsun B210 that you can't get parts for, and it's got questionable emissions and a questionable safety and
yeah.
Right. So they're both $3,000 cars, but one of them is brand
Have you
new.
seen the price of a 210
them,
lately?
Well, I'm making stuff up.
I know.
One of them is brand new, and the other one is 50 years old.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I believe that your theory of deregulation is flawed, and I love you like a brother. I really do. Of all the people I know in my
Not a
life,
sister, but he loves you like a brother.
Sister, no. Of all the people I've met in my life, like you are a solid, good dude. But I think you're totally wrong on this, dude. And Phil, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, and to that point of if people have a choice to make, are we assuming that they're going to make the choice that is not in their best interest? Are they not going to make a choice that they have to live with? Now, some people do make bad decisions. Do they need to live with that bad decision? Now, we have a society have decided people don't always have to live with those bad decisions. So we have our community hospitals. We'll fix, we'll fix the idiot who drives without a helmet on his motorcycle.
Well, and socially speaking, we have an accountability problem.
So
people don't want to be accountable for their behavior.
Yeah. So that does.
That's only half the population, Tom.
That does enter another element, but when people are already making the decision exists. Am I going to buy a new car that I can't afford? No. So I'm going to, squeak by in the 1993 Chevy S10 Blazer that I got from my brother-in-law on a deal. It runs on 5 cylinders, but it gets us to and fro. Yeah, seatbelts don't work, but we just kind of keep them looking like we're wearing them because we don't want to get pulled over. They make those decisions. Now, if they had the option to afford a already ready to go car that frankly met the standard that was safe in 1993.
Yeah.
Isn't that better than what they're doing?
Well,
they don't even have that choice. That choice is removed.
So you say that deregulation won't work, but we've already seen that overregulation, helicopter government, whatever you want to call it, that doesn't work either.
No, I think smart regulation is important.
We've never done that.
I don't want to.
We've never done smart regulation.
We've done smart regulation.
We've never done smart regulation.
The food packing industry, the meat packing industry is way safer than it was. The mines are way safer than they were.
Yeah, at the expense, Kevin, of pushing processed foods, which are responsible for 3/4 of the health issues that people have in this country today. So yeah, sure.
Well, that has I'm talking about the safety measures that were put in place to protect meat packers.
That probably has
through the FDA. I'm saying the FDA are money grubbers, and so we deal with the power we've given the FDA by being forced to eat a lot of processed foods. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well,
I bet you a lot of that has to do with things like corn subsidies and
for sure.
High fructose corn syrup cheap for a reason.
Keep in mind, there are caves in, I think it's West Virginia or Pennsylvania, full of cheese.
Ozarks.
Missouri. So again, those
Can I go get free cheese?
those corn subsidies and stuff. Again, all that regulation stuff. That's all got to go. That will be better for the American consumer.
To quote that one lady with bald hair, no hair, stop the insanity. Like, seriously.
Oh, Susan Powder.
Yeah, like, why?
In fact, I remember her name.
yeah.
That's pretty impressive,
That
isn't
is
it?
impressive. Wow.
All right. On that note.
All right. So we're going to wrap this up. One more comment from Holly really quick. Holly said, if we're going to be honest, hold on. Sorry, I'll read the one before that first. A progressive income tax would be equitable, unlike these regressive taxes on gas, goods and services, et cetera, that disproportionately impact the poor. If we're going to be honest, the poor and low income is defined by the government, don't have vehicles because they can't afford them now as it is. So to get to the question about the income tax, if all things are being equal, the income tax may not be a bad idea in theory until you realize the fact the government is not suddenly going to go, oh, income tax? We're going to stop charging you all these other taxes.
Right.
No, what they'll do is they'll add the income tax to every other tax that you're already paying, and it'll go up. It's not going to stay steady.
No, and they won't be responsible with it because they're not responsible with it now.
I would love to be naive enough to believe that they're going to wake up one day and say, you guys have an income tax, we're going to waive everything else. That's not what's going to happen. The sales taxes will remain, the excise taxes will remain, all the other taxes will remain, and then you'll have an income tax on top of it.
Like, let's not forget we have the leader of the Democratic Party in the state of Washington asked another high-ranking elected official to break laws for him in order to help him win the election for governor. So yeah, that's the kind of people, Kevin, that we can count on to spend our money wisely.
Exactly. All right, Bob Ross, you have a comment?
I was
and
just
then we'll
thinking,
wrap this up.
Yeah, man, it's all good stuff. Like examples though, of like the consequences for we're always. It feels like an episode of Star Trek where we need to have more power to the shields because this thing's going to destroy. So more power to the shield. Let's put, and then finally.
I thought you meant by an episode of Star Trek, you meant overproduced and poorly written. But go ahead.
No, it's Next Generation, not original.
Touche.
And in the end, it was like you let it go, and then it's just like, oh, it doesn't hit so hard. It was in the sun a couple weeks ago. There was a mobile home RV park scenario. There was a number of examples. One of them was a woman apparently living on like some sort of SSI. It's already government subsidy pseudo because she's receiving the maximum, which is what, $940 some bucks. That's it. That's what you get SSI, and you get some food stamp SNAP. And her life was pretty well squared away. Like, I can afford my little RV spot. I got my RV. I'm happy here. It's not perfect, but she's eking out. She's not in subsidized housing. She's in her spot. She feels like this is her home. She used to travel. Now she's parked and
she's productive.
Well, the property gets sold. Someone's like, well, we got to increase this because, we'd be fools because the government says if you don't increase your things at certain intervals, we're not going to allow you to increase rent. So they're like, yeah, we're going to make some changes. Like, well, now she's like, I can't stay here anymore because of rules that were meant to protect people harm them unintentionally. But I could go on. It's
you're right.
There's so much unintended. So it's like, as we keep making changes, people try to find the new equilibrium.
Yep.
And we just keep changing it up. So they're always trying to find the new equilibrium.
Really quick, one last comment from Holly. I got to shoot down. Holly said, I literally already discussed repealing regressive taxes. We have people-driven initiatives in this state, Kevin. Weak excuse. Holly, I'm going to give you an example. During COVID, the state legislature came up with an extra $4 billion they didn't budget for. $4 billion with a B dollars. Do you know what they didn't do, Holly? They didn't reduce taxes. They didn't get rid of any regressive taxes. They didn't change anything. They didn't give a rebate. They didn't kick any money back. In fact,
and while you're on that, guess what? The roads still suck.
The roads still suck. And they found a way to spend the $4 billion. Now,
and it wasn't on roads.
Holly, I really do love your passion. I really do. I believe that you believe that what you're telling us is the truth. I hate to be the bad news evildoer dude, but you're wrong. The government will not relinquish power and give money back or take money off of the coffers. You cannot find one example where they have in any significant, substantial way because they won't. And I know you believe you have people initiatives moving things around. Why don't you start with repealing one tax? Just repeal one of them to show it'll work. Because I guarantee you can get one to work. I will help you petition and sign forms, and I'll go out on a Saturday afternoon and do it with you, and I'll help you. But the state is never going to give up power or money streams. They're just going to add to it because it's what they do. All right. But it's a weak excuse. See, Holly can't have a conversation without insulting people. If she disagrees, it's a weak excuse, Kevin. You don't know what you're talking about. You're an idiot. Whatever. It's fine. I'm used to it. I was married once. I've been called worse. Phil, parting shots.
I'd say remember there's an initiative around about the whole natural gas stove thing. Whether you think it's good or bad, sign the initiative so the people can decide.
Very good point, Phil.
All right. Dennis, you want to make a parting shot?
Sure. Pray for kids.
We were going to be out of here a half hour ago. You just wouldn't shut up, Dennis.
You're right. No, but Father's Day. Also, let's not forget those guys out there that they've got kids. They're not allowed to be
part of their lives. Yeah.
Part of their lives. That father. We see you out there too, and respect you. If nothing else, from me right here.
Thanks, Dennis. Love you, buddy. All right, Lori, do you have a parting shot you'd like to make?
Guess what?
Get in the kitchen and make a sandwich. What?
Never.
Oh.
Anyways, eat bacon.
Yes. Praise
bacon.
Praise the Lord.
And
ammunition. All right. Tom, parting shots.
Yeah. Happy Father's Day, Dad.
Oh yeah, happy Father's Day. Sorry.
Did I ever call Holly a name? Holly just said I called her names. Did I call her a name? I didn't think I called her a name. If I did, I apologize. I should not be calling names.
I
I'm
heard
working
you
on
call
that.
her Holly.
Oh shit. No, if I called you a name, Holly, I sincerely apologize. I'm trying not to call people names and not to do that thing. I was trying to have an honest conversation with you about the draft and a question, by the way, that you never answered. But go ahead, Tom.
So happy Father's Day, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Voting for Best in the PNW is still going on. It'll go till June 28th at 5 p.m. So if you would please do me a favor and get on the website, vote the PNW, and vote for Black Ring Spirits. And
By the way, everybody, vote for Black Ring Spirits as eat and drink category distillery, as well as date night.
Oh, are we on date nights too?
Oh.
Okay.
And also, while you're there voting, go into the things to do category, click on the escape rooms, and vote for Kitsap Great Escape. Big news coming out of Kitsap Great Escape, by the way. Today was the last day for two of their rooms, Terminal and Relic. Today was the last day. They are gone. They're done. Tomorrow morning, I will be at the escape room, helping to tear them out. 2 new rooms are making their way in there. They should be ready to go by mid-July. I'm not going to tell you what they are because I don't know if they've been released officially yet, but I know what they are, and they're going to be cool. And here's a hint. You're from Kitsap County. Maybe you have loved ones that serve at Banger. What are at Banger? What's at Banger?
Ooh, there's going to be a submarine.
I'm not going to confer anything. All right. There you go. Holly said we can't petition to repeal taxes in the state. We can't. It doesn't do any good. Corey, go back to what Holly. I said Lori and Holly at the same time. Holly, go back to what happened when the citizens in this state voted for $30 license tabs. And the legislature essentially said, and I quote, "fuck off," and took it away. I mean, listen, I know you're right. You can do all of those things, but it's not going to be a long-lasting change. They're not going to give it up. I wish you were right, but they're not going to. Lori, talk, and then I'm going to get my party shot.
Technically, the state has gotten around that by saying that your car tab registration fee is $30. And then they
added fees on top of it.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to point
But they
that out.
basically said, we don't care what the voters have supported or petitioned
Here's our
for.
middle fingers.
Here's our middle fingers in a very liberal state, by the way, that still voted for that
Do you know what my
initiative.
tabs are on an 11-year-old Leaf?
250.
Keep going.
251.
400.
251.
Holly said because you can't implement unconstitutional laws, which is why $30 tabs failed. Here's the problem, Lori.
Not unconstitutional.
Holly, sorry. Here's the problem, Holly.
It's not unconstitutional.
Wow.
It was ruled constitutional because the Attorney General's office had to half-assed defend it. And again, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. On one hand, we, the people, can influence tax law change. We just have to do X, Y, and Z. On the other hand, we did it, and they said, no, you can't, because it's not right. You can't have it both ways, Holly. They don't care about you. They don't care about the people you're advocating for. They don't care about the people you're trying to help. The sooner you understand that government is not our friend, the sooner you will understand how right I am.
Which is ironic because the government is
Holly,
us.
how was it unconstitutional? It was never overturned as unconstitutional. The
Hey,
legislature
Kevin, you want to
passed
just
laws
wake
that
me up when
overdid
it's
it.
my turn to do parting shots, man?
I'm sorry, Paul. Parting shots. Go ahead.
You'd have kept going and going like the Energizer
She
Bunny.
doesn't listen, but Paul's asleep. Hold on. Paul, wake up! Go ahead.
Yeah.
Wake up
No, I got to get this over, man. I'm going to go watch the new Game of Thrones episode as soon as I get done with this show. I will say this.
Go. Take me dancing tonight. Go.
I muted him, Paul, just for you.
That was kind of you.
Kind of something.
And anyway, so it's springtime. New animals and new critters are being born. Keep your eyes out and open. I know we have a ton of new baby chicks here. We had 4 born just today. Tom, you'll appreciate this. We decided on a new addition to make to our farm. We're going to get a couple of miniature cows. I'm totally looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. The glasses of milk are smaller though, so it is what it is.
A little smaller.
Yeah,
Nano.
yeah.
So, name one of them Nano. Nano.
There you go. Absolutely, Nano's a good idea. All right, folks. Peace.
All right, my parting shot. Holly, if you can find me something that says it was actually declared as unconstitutional, not that the legislature overturned it and said that's why it was. They don't determine what's unconstitutional or not. The courts do. So if you can find me something that actually acknowledges it was unconstitutional, was ruled by a court or governing body, I'd love to read that. And if that happens, I'll admit you were right. Until then, have a good night. My parting shot is as follows. Again, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Remember the importance of fatherhood in your communities and to your children, and the important role that you play. Remember, vote for anybody but Jay Inslee's successor, Bob Turd Ferguson.
Puppet pudding.
Chocolate pudding?
Puppet pudding.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yuck. That just sounds gross.
The Supreme Court ruled on it. What's Supreme Court ruled on it, Holly? The state or federal? I think she means state, but put it in there and I'll go look for it. Outlaw Radio. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. Well, they'll see you on Wednesday. I will see you next Sunday. Remember, every day is a good day if you don't wear pants.
Good night.